It's the Intergalactic Soul, the Honorable Brother, the Revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 118 of Power Bombshells. I am Sam and that is Mel. Thank you for joining us in the chat. And also, I guess I should say we're too broad to talk about the wrestling we watch and that we attend live, which we will get to in a moment. And then we do have a special guest who unfortunately is not Daza, but we will have a guest joining us shortly.
I was told there would be guests. Well, you'll just have to wait. That's called a tease.
It is.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Thank you. That's very nice. Bob brought this home this week. I decided that I was going to hat-ize it. So,
there you go.
It's very stylish. I was like, oh, yes. This will make a perfect hat.
There you go.
It's nice and airy. It's all like hand knit. It's nice.
Oh, yeah, it is nice. I like it.
It's kind of cool. Even the patterning is really pretty. I wish that you could like see stuff better.
Right.
We've had secret agent squirrels on our house today. So the squirrels on our house are very brazen. And it's partially because Bob and the lady across the street feed them, but also because just they're crazy. And so for the longest time, what they do is they go prone and they sideways crawl across my front window. And it drives my dogs nuts. And we have like rice paper on the window now, but you can still see their silhouettes doing it.
Oh.
Well, this morning they decided that they wanted to take it up a notch and actually hang from, because we put the screen up to, because it's been warm and I didn't want to put on the AC because I'm that cheapskate. I can kill Memorial Day weekend at least. But it's 98,000 degrees. But so the squirrel, he was on, we kept hearing things and someone was like playing with the door. I'm like, okay, what the hell? So finally I had Bob, of course, look, because like.
Right, of course.
You know, I mean, he's scarier than me. Like, he opens it up.
But he's there for, obviously.
Squirrel's like hanging on he was literally hanging on our front door, like on our front screen door. Just hanging there.
We have this bird feeder that is made out of repurposed wood that I got on Etsy a couple of years ago, and it's made out of like 100-year-old tree. Like they repurposed it into that, and so we have it, and it's on it's hanging from the front so that we can see out our window to watch them. And the squirrels love it. I mean, the birds do too, but the squirrels have taken over. There's like a little family of squirrels because now we have 2 little babies, and so they all they just come in and they make the biggest mess. Like they push seed everywhere. We've been bringing them peanuts lately. We're gonna have to get like a separate squirrel feeder, I think.
It doesn't work. I think they'll still bother.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking too. Because we found one yesterday, and I think we might go back and get it. And it's supposed to look like a little picnic table.
Yeah, our backyard neighbors have one.
Yeah, and
you put it over the fence, and you put stuff in it.
Yeah, they have little seeds in it, and then there's a nail in the center that you put a corn cob on for them. And so, I don't know how much of a deterrent it will be. So yeah, we have birds and squirrels fighting over it like every single day, and
they enjoy it, is what I would tell you, because they put one on the fence we have barrier between our 2 things. It's not great for our dogs because they get in there, and I don't want the stuff that falls on the ground.
Sure,
but that's pretty easy to get around. That's But it doesn't last long enough.
Yeah, and like Nikki pointed out, there's mesh at the bottom of the because it's supposed to look like a swing.
Yeah,
and so the mesh that's there, they keep tearing the mesh.
Makes me want to go take a picture of my neighbors because I know them. It's funny. They talk to me about it. It's funny. So it makes me want to go back there and take a picture of. Theirs is an older version. It's a couple of generations ago, but
yeah, this one, the one that we saw yesterday, it comes with screws so that you can put it into a tree and have it there. So I just don't know if
it's mostly to keep them out of the garden a lot of the times, but our solution to that, because seeds and stuff are irrelevant, we went and got a couple of those solar sprinklers that are motion detectors. And
right.
So what we do is we put those we have the fencing around the garden and stuff. And then we put those in strategic positions. So if the squirrels go in there, it fires off at them. Or we know that they're out there and we can kind of let the dogs there to sort of chase them away. It's like they run away, but they also hang out in the trees like, yeah, I see you and you can't get me up here.
Miley is forever trying to stalk. She stalks like a cat. She tries, but she's never fast enough. And the two little the other day I had to come after. I happened to be in the backyard, and the two babies, they were like just hanging out in the grass. And I mean, I think they knew she was there, but I was like, they're babies. So I was calling Miley, and she was ignoring me, of course, because she was in her hunter mode. And I was like, Miley. And so I kept making noises so that the squirrels would at least be aware. And like one got there before Miley was still a couple feet away, and the other one, it waited until I think it knew Miley was there. It still waited till the very last minute. And I was like, come on. I was like, luckily, and it ran through the fence. And every time they either run right up the tree or they run through the fence. And Miley, it doesn't stop her. She tries very hard to get a squirrel, and it's never happened for her, and hopefully it never does.
Bob went through a whole phase where he was watching TikTok videos on squirrels, and they are amazing, the things that they do. And like, there's this guy out there that basically was building like how to trick a squirrel traps, like, but they weren't even traps. They were more like obstacle courses. He was trying to kind of like see if they would what lengths they would go to. And it was amazing what they would figure out. So I'm like, you know what? It's fine. You guys are here. It's the same couple we have a similar thing. We have one gray one with Bob nicknamed him Tips because he has white tipped ears on the back.
Oh, how cute.
And then we have a little black one with like a reddish brown hue. And he's just all over the place. They don't care. It's like, you guys, seriously, especially the bigger dog, kind of dangerous.
Yeah, Miley, they have a dog and a cat in the backyard with Roman and Miley, and they just don't. But I think it's because they know they're faster, and so they're not really ever in any danger. So, because there's big dogs in the yards behind us, and they just go all between, because of all the trees. They just hop between all the yards all the time. And
see, I went with squirrels and not with talking to you about the fact that I saw a really great wrestling show last night.
We did.
That's okay. Maybe JD will be interested in something like that.
I will go back to this.
I don't think he likes wrestling, but
no, JD doesn't like it at all.
I've heard.
He just likes writing about it.
Just writing about it.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring him in before we get to your story.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. I don't know how much time.
Are you ready to go? Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So we are welcoming back to our show one of our honorary broads. And so we have JD Oliva with us today.
Honorary broad is one of the coolest things anyone's ever told me in my life. So I'm going to wear that badge with honor. Had I gotten in on time, I was going to make my name honorary broad at the bottom, but I barely got this damn rural internet up and going this afternoon, actually. So I'm just happy to be here. And I am happy to be here. Thanks for having me. By the way, I think I hate wrestling. This is kind of where I'm at every week. I think at the moment I freaking hate wrestling. So
I've been there. Believe me, over the last few months, I've had my I don't even want to look at you days with wrestling, but yeah, I've also had last night I went to a local show, City Championship Wrestling. And it was their 3rd anniversary show. It was over at a high school gym. I haven't been to high school gym wrestling in forever. It was fantastic. But the Motor City Machine Guns were supposed to be the main event. And I don't know. I think someone pulled out, but it's just weird. I have no way of confirming that. But there was just some things that were weird. But so they kind of rushed what they were doing, but it still came off really great. And I should have known. We sat, because we were new, so we got general admission, and we sat kind of back so we could see how the promotion was and how everything was going to flow and all these things. And then, sure enough, they won the tag team gauntlet, of course. Or no, I'm sorry, they didn't win. The Dub Club won. That's the people who they were challenging. And they came running in and busted everything up, and we're like, well, it was supposed to be the main event, but since we're the coolest MFers in the world and we're the best, and Shelly cut an awesome promo about how we do whatever we want, so we're going to have it right now.
Oh.
And so they proceeded to have this excellent match with these kids. They were great. They were a lot of fun. They did a great job. I found them afterwards and made sure to tell them, like, it was a really good match. They had a Baby Bucks vibe about them almost. They had sort of the colored pants, and they came running in and were like slapping everybody's hands, and they were definitely like big over with the crowd. And so I was like, all right, this is going to be fun. But I should have known. It's Motor City. Of course, they're going to do some crazy spot that comes flying out of the ring into our section. But I didn't think it would be our section. So next thing you know, we're like, oh, crap. Gather up your things. Like, back off. And they're just like in my section. And I have it on my Twitter as the picture of it. Sabin was literally right there wrestling the guy. And Shelly was like down a few stairs. And Bob and I are like trying to click pictures. I'm like, well, it's not John Moxley like all of my other friends, but this is way cooler.
Listen, it's Motor City freaking machine guns.
It was a lot of good stuff. I'm excited. Plus, now they're the champions, and the next booking they're doing is in my town, like walking distance from me. And one of the business owners that I know downtown knows the booker, so I'm going to go bug him a lot about making sure that there's a tag team rematch.
So they were supposed to be in the main event, and then it sounded like they no-showed, and then they were there anyway. That's what I'm gathering happened. Am I right? Or did I read that wrong?
It doesn't sound like, you know what? I don't think they no-showed. I think the people that were supposed to win the tag team gauntlet to wrestle them for the vacated.
Gotcha.
The way it was is that they were vacated championships.
Okay.
And they were the winner of the tag team gauntlet earlier in the show. We're going to wrestle them, and there was a triple main event because they had a whole bunch of stuff, but that was supposed to be the main event. Okay, and I think what happened was, because when I went back to look through the card this morning, I was like, because something weird, it just felt weird. There was things that were going on that just having, seen enough performances long enough, you get a vibe for.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is happening? And so, and the guy that was emceeing it was even burying the team a little bit. But because I don't know all the talent yet, because it's brand new to me, I'm not sure. But he was kind of like, and he cut a promo about, they don't deserve you. And so, and I was like, oh, okay. So this team was definitely not on this show last night. So I think the team that was set to win the tag team gauntlet must have bailed at the last minute and this is wild speculation. I have no idea. I'm brand new to the promotion. I've watched a lot of their YouTube stuff, but and I think so what they did to fix everything and kind of move some things around and book some different matches or do whatever they had to do. And this is even from watching recently you guys, you and Mike talk with John Muse about storytelling and having talent drop out, and it kind of brought me back to that very conversation there, because I was like, huh. And so the Dub Club won the match, and Shelly and Sabin ran in at the end of the gauntlet match and said, yay, you won, la la la, but because we do whatever we want and because we're the baddest.
So they saved the show is what it sounds like.
Essentially.
They saved the Booker's ass and just did the match right then and there instead of doing it at the main event because it screwed up everything else is what it sounds like. So it seems like Motor City was being the professional veterans that they are and helped out the local promotion.
Well, and that's what I said even. When we were chatting about it, I was like, this definitely, like, having them back there tonight was like the best thing that could have happened to these guys, because they know what's up.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, at the time it was like it didn't register with me. It was something that as we were going along, and I was like, I thought it was supposed to be somebody different that was calling them out for some reason. And then so maybe we go back to the card this morning, and sure enough, it was like, huh.
So these guys, I mean, who knows? Maybe they bailed maybe they did have legit reasons to bail, but to bail on a match where you're going to wrestle the Motor City Machine Guns seems like not a very smart move for your career.
Probably not. Probably not. So I don't know if we'll ever see them again, but I mean, I didn't get to see them, so I can't judge them, but they still put together. I mean, and this was their anniversary show, which is like if somebody bailed on them during their third anniversary show, like they were doing a raffle where all the wrestlers were signing the ring skirt and giving it away for charity. Everything that they do goes to charity. This one was going to a dog shelter. Ours is going to a dog shelter. Like they're working with a dog company that does like positive reinforcement training. So they're animal lovers, clearly.
That's cool.
So our Motor City, so they'll be back, I assume, for the next show then.
And my fingers crossed, 2 weeks, June 15th, they come right here to my town, and I'm hoping that they have to defend that. And I really liked at the end of the day, Dub Club took their shot, man, and I love those kids. I'm excited now. I found them on Twitter this morning. I want to make sure I check for their bookings. I hope they're part of this roster. So, and oh my gosh, this is the funniest thing ever. You guys will both appreciate this. They also announced that they're going to be doing a show in July at my old Evolve venue.
Oh, cool.
Good.
Nobody has booked there in forever. I've been looking. I'm like, oh, I wonder if they'll ever. So they are booking at the original like Evolve place where all these things happen. They even made reference to it. I popped so hard. I was like, oh, we gotta go to that. That's like my OG.
So they've hooked you in.
So I was very excited. It's the first time that they've booked there, and I haven't seen any other shows come up at that location. Even though it's fun, cool. It's a great place. It's the Knights of Columbus Hall.
Well, then
there's
maybe
a big cross
and venue where you would want a lot of people to come see Motor City is what that sounds like to me.
Well, and it's a familiar venue with a lot of people that were.
Sure.
I'm gonna like ping my friends and I'll be like, yo, wrestling. I haven't seen you guys since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I was very excited about that. It looks promising for the promotion, and the show was great. I mean, there was some funny stuff. They had like a 50-man double ring battle royale.
Fantastic. It was like they went all out for their anniversary show.
It was a lot of fun, but
that's really cool. I'm glad that you had a good time.
I just had to do it because it's sort of related to the conversation. I don't think I would have thought about it if I hadn't listened to you, JD, and Mike and John Muse talk about some of that stuff, and him mention like we had to rebook one day because the talent bailed on us and we had to do all that redirecting. And I was like, wait a minute.
That's the hardest part about, I love talking to John because he has a different kind of creative mind than I do. And wrestling is super different than any other creative endeavor in that you're dealing with real people, and real people often don't do what they're told or even show up. So oftentimes your creative has to be like a living organism, and it has to grow and change and evolve while a show is going on. And more often than not, that is the case in wrestling. I know people want like long-term booking and like things to make sense and go in a specific direction, but oftentimes like it's just not realistic, because people are people and people have little foibles, and sometimes they don't go to freaking work, and there's not much you can do about that.
Right. And then there's also injuries and things that you have to pivot from. And some people are better at pivoting than other people.
Yeah, very true.
When it comes to their stories. So yeah, there's a lot. And I guess since we have you here and before we get into some of the other stuff, but that kind of goes with like, I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but I know that there was some stuff about what's currently happening in TNA and how they're letting a lot of Scott D'Amore people go from behind the scenes, and Gail Kim seems to be like the safest person, but then I saw Mike point out this morning that he thought the same about Scott. So do you think they'd get rid of Gail Kim because of her ties to D'Amore, or do you think she's, because of what she does for the Knockouts division, that she would stay?
What division?
Or they'd let her stay?
There is no knockouts to be. There is no knockouts.
Well,
it's not real. It's Jordan Grace has a belt and she's now on another TV show with it. No one is safe in professional wrestling ever.
True. Yeah.
Like it seems like TNA, and again, I haven't been watching. Mike and I used to have a TNA specific show.
Yeah.
I had a break from reality during one episode of Impact, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I haven't been following the product.
Yeah, I've got I have 4 or 5 episodes sitting on my DVR because I've been watching other things.
Oh, I get it. Like Impact it was a show that I watched because I had to, and then I didn't want to anymore. So that being said, it does seem like they're making a conscientious effort to move away from Scott D'Amore. I know there's some talk in our circles, Mike and I, that certain people from the old TNA regime are leaking that there's problems with TNA to the media. I don't know how true that is. It's just stuff that Mike and I have heard. Would it surprise? No, me neither. Would it surprise me if they got rid of Gail because she's loyal to Scott? It's possible. Like, I don't know what the new TNA, and that's kind of new. Like, went into this new direction. Yeah. I don't know what their goals are. I don't know if they know what their goals are yet. But I know there's a lot of people that were super loyal to Scott, and there's a lot of people that are super excited about the future for TNA with their NXT, alliance, we'll call it. They can't wait to lie down for 20-year-olds who doing burpees every day in a gym. So, whatever, man. Like, I don't know what's going on. If I'm Gail, I'm maybe spit shine on my resume. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
My dream is that Tony Khan comes to the realization that he needs a really awesome booker, and he hires Scott D'Amore and gives him ROH and lets him do what he did with Impact and make it good, and he goes and focuses solely on AEW and making.
I just want him to loosen his grip on ROH, because ROH has gotten to the point where it's just matches.
If he's insisting on hanging on to ROH for as a regular weekly product.
Yeah.
I don't love Scott's booking, so I don't know if I love that. I don't know. I like your idea in theory.
Okay, sure.
I like your idea in theory. I do think ROH should be its own thing right now, and it's not. And
or someone. How about
somebody? Someone would be good. I agree with that. It should be its own. It should be its own thing. Yeah. Well, here's the problem, and this is talking to people. The grip is a lot looser in AEW than people realize, and they do have a creative team, so to say. The problem is, and we talked about this with John Muse when he came in to our show, the Mike and JD show on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network, every Thursday night live on YouTube. The problem,
we let him plug that and didn't even have a problem.
I appreciate that. As I was saying, there's a lot of WWE lean going on in AEW right now in their creative team. And look who's there. You have Sanjay Dutt and Jimmy Jacobs and Pat Buck and this Pepperman, and like there's way too many people that think Vince's way is the way.
Yeah.
So, and you can't tell me that this is the same promotion that it was in 2021, right? Like everything feels different. The TV feels different. Like it definitely has more of a, as my boss in Voices of Wrestling, Joe Lanza, calls a sports entertainment lean to it. So I think that Tony gives up more than people realize. I think there's a reason. I said this on our show. I think there's a reason why Sean Ross Sapp had to come out with the whole, Tony Khan was in charge of the gauntlet match. Well, no shit, Sherlock, it's your company. Like, of course you were in charge of it. So but why?
That makes sense.
But why say that? Why the need to go out with? Of course, I'm of the belief that war is a harsh word. I don't believe there's a war, but I believe there are a lot of philosophical roadblocks that are being hit within that company right now. And I think Tony's instincts do lean to the more pro wrestling inspired, like the Watts type stuff. I think, and that is more where his sensibilities lie. Whereas I have a feeling that what goes on over there is, okay, you guys are going to work on this, you guys are going to work on that, and you guys are going to work on this. And the people that are set to work on stuff have these WWE tendencies.
Yeah.
But because when you're in charge, the axe falls on you, it all becomes, well, Tony, success. How does that cliche go? Mike always knows that, and he always just to correct me on it. Like it's like success has 1,000 fathers, failure has one, or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
It's just, believe it or not, I do right things, and I am usually more eloquent than this. But like it's like when things
Mike's really good with that stuff. He is.
Mike's got all the cliches memorized. He does. He's really
he's
good at
got all the motivational posters just like
yeah.
right up there. He can just
Mike is a motivational poster. Mike has a
he
million
kind
of
of
those
is.
things.
I mean,
He's a walking motivational poster.
He is.
he's like
really...
the worst person and the best person to look up to all at the same time.
That's funny you say that. Like, he's one of my dearest friends. I love him, and he's a hilarious person. But I mean, like when I forget what his rank is. I'll just, for the lack of a better term, I'll say Sergeant Gilbert comes out. It's it's a different person. Like, and I like when we get that guy come through a little bit on the show. I'm like, all right, I see it now. I see it. So it's funny.
I just kind of go with Sassy Mike, but yes,
Sassy Mike is my favorite Mike. My favorite Mike is Conspiracy Theory Mike. That's my personal favorite version of Mike. The one who's like on the constant quest for aliens. No, but I think the problem right AEW right now is that I just think that Tony's trying to give up more creative control and trying to let more people. And I think he's just listening to the wrong people.
Yeah, he's listening to a couple of those people he's listened to are people who don't like women's wrestling. And that's where we've had some issues. I think having Peppermint in there, I think has helped. But prior to that, and just from conversations I've had with various people, there are people who are involved in that company and booking who don't think women's wrestling is important. They don't think it draws. And so they wouldn't list, like, women were coming to him with ideas, and these people were, Tony would be like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it. And these certain writers were like, no, this is terrible. Fans won't like this. And so it's holding the women's division back because you have a couple people in there who don't like women's wrestling and they don't believe in women's wrestling. And so it's hurting the product, and it's putting the division. We're in year 5, and obviously things are exciting now, but like every time they start with the women's division and then they stop, and it's because he's listening to people who don't care about women's wrestling. And so then he lets it fall to the wayside, and then we have to start all over again. And it's just, so yeah, I wish he would not listen to certain people, and I wish they didn't have the positions that they have. If these things that I'm hearing are true and correct, then they need to get these people out of booking.
I think that's the problem with AEW in general, is everything is very start and stop, and everything, like, things will be moving one way, and then all of a sudden things move in a different way. And I did a thing a couple months ago, maybe about 9 months ago now, where I did a solo podcast where I questioned Tony Khan's leadership skills. And I don't think he's a great leader necessarily. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't think he's ever been in a position where he's had to lead before this. And now that we're 5 years in, I just don't see it getting better personally. And again, I want this company to succeed because I don't like WWE. Like, regardless of AEWs or not, like, before AEW, I checked out of WWE long before AEW came up. So
sure.
I want this thing to work, and you just see flaws. And like, from a creative perspective, I see problems that they have with lots of things. And again, I'm not a booker, nor do I care to be. But again, you see problems, and you're like, okay, this is a problem. How do you fix it? And oftentimes they don't pivot very well, and they don't take advantage of
that a lot.
Yeah, they don't pivot well. They don't take advantage of things that are handed to them. Like, it's just, I feel like things should be better than they are. And I'm not saying they should be beating WWE. I think that is ridiculous. It's a stupid thought. Like, the fact that they're as competitive as they are is good, but at the same time, like, I compared this on our show last week. I said they should try to be more like Pepsi. Pepsi doesn't try to be like Coke. Pepsi does its own thing. Pepsi has Mountain Dew that makes it stand out, that makes it unique in the marketplace.
Sure.
AEW doesn't try to be unique enough. They try. There's too, and again, because WWE was the only voice for a generation. Gray Thistle says Tony tries to be everyone's friend. Sorry, I am of the habit that if a comment comes up, I'm going to read it because that's what I'm trying to do on my shows. I have those reflexes, and I realized I was doing it, so that's my fault.
Perfect. Hey, it's fine. It's not. I get it. I get it. Sometimes. No, I get it.
I don't usually read the comments with Samsung. I just read them in the thingy and make sure that I respond to some of the people. So
Jeremy Finestone is here. It says bombshells and hot takes in one.
Jeremy Finestone.
Here we are. We are the hottest of takers.
I gotta take her too.
I do have to. I will put this up for you to read from Daza.
Thanks, Daza. This is JD stuff.
I'm gonna have to agree with that.
Motivational and inspirational. Thanks. You know, it's funny. I'll talk about this with you guys because I think I can. I got a Facebook message from a guy that I have never met. I don't know if this happens to you guys, but do you find yourself having conversations with people that you've never actually seen or spoken to? Like, I get random messages on both Facebook and Twitter from people that I don't know frequently. You know, does that ever happen to you guys? Yeah, it's weird.
Sometimes on Twitter, I sometimes will get it. Sometimes it's more related to my like things that I've written. But sometimes it is stuff here with Power Bombshells, or I guess because they found me in both, and so they're like, so sometimes they'll ask me. So sometimes I get it, but nothing crazy.
I had a lot of that in the Reddit communities I was in, like especially Reddit, with epilepsy and stuff like that, because people actually would reach out to, because I talk openly about my surgeries and so forth. And the minute that, I mean, in some ways, I think when you talk openly about whatever mental illness, your chronic illness, whatever the thing might be, it does. Sometimes here and there, it doesn't happen as much, but I did a whole show on mental health with some women that were also, people that suffered from mental disease. And so we would get an occasional thing. And it's like, a lot of times you got to tell the people, like, just do your best and make sure you can get whatever access that you can. But I think empathy is something that people can sense, and sometimes they need it and they're not getting it from their community. And so if they see someone like that, it's the same as like, it happens to me a lot. I'm sure it happens to you guys, like where you're out at a convenience store or whatever, and someone starts telling you their life story.
Never. I've never had that happen to me.
Oh man, there's been so many times over the years where someone will just sort of they're never. Like,
I don't usually have it with strangers, but I'm definitely the person that people come to with issues or wanting opinions or wanting my perspective on things. I've always been that person. So it's more with people I know than with strangers, but I've always have people have always
it happens. I mean, I know it's happened to other people I know, so I know I'm not unique, because I think my cousin has it a lot where people will just, but again, I think even online, if you're genuine, I think that people can sense genuine eventually. And there's so much disingenuous rhetorical BS out there that when someone finally sees something that like strikes them in an actual human place, I think that really helps them. And you've been very open about what you've been going through the last few months. And I appreciate that, because I think it's important so that people know that they're not alone. And because it's the biggest one.
I don't have anyone ever come up to me to talk to me. I think my wife says I have resting dick face. Like I look like I've got like a big forehead, so like I got like a Cro-Magnon ridge. So like I walk around, I got beady eyes, so I look like I'm angry all the time, but I'm not. I'm actually very applicable. So like I never get randoms that want to talk to me. I get people that walk away from me. So, but when I'm online, like I'm pretty much an open book about some things, and like I have been talking about stuff, because I think there is what I like about. This is a newer thing that I have realized, is I like talking to women. You guys in are good cases, is I think you guys are really good about talking about like feelings and emotions, those things. We suck at it, man. We're terrible. We're awful at it. Like it's like I have some really good friends, and it's like a struggle to have like emotional conversations with them. It just they don't do that. I'm pretty good at it. Like I'm more than willing to do it. I think it's one of the things that makes me a decent high school coach, is I can get in there and talk with the kids about this.
Absolutely.
So like I've come to find that I really enjoy, like, not just I love talking to my wife, but I like having, female friends that I can talk to, because I think you guys are just better at this than we are typically. Consequently, is that I typically will get random people sending me things to be like, hey, and it's cool because I know they need people to talk to. And I know when I went through my stuff, my dad passed away in February, and it was it hit me a lot harder than I expected it to. Is I had friends that were willing to listen and talk to me and just be an ear. So like, I feel like I had to pay that forward. But like I had one guy like this week, he's like, man, it seems like this dude emailed, like messaged me, never met this guy in my life. This guy's like, it seems like you're searching for perfection, and I don't want you to be upset when you don't attain perfection. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, bro, I've never been perfect at anything in my life. Like I trip and fall, and I make jokes. I'm very self-deprecating. Like, and I sent it to some people that I care. I'm like, does this read right to you? Is this the way I'm coming? And, Jeremy, who's in the chat, was one of the guys I talked to about this. And he was like, no, you're fine. So, I mean, it's nice to just go, okay, things are all right. But I just like, and it's interesting to me that I'll get people to be like, hey, can you lend an ear? And I'm more than happy to do that, because like, I don't see that in my regular life very often, but like online, it's been cool. Like I've been very, very open about, the fact that things are hard sometimes. I had a tough morning this morning. I went for a walk with the dog, and I was just kind of just up in my feelings about stuff. I realized my dad's birthday is tomorrow. So I was kind of like, well, that would be why. That's why. Okay, that's why I'm all up in my feelings today. So it's just good to kind of realize why you're doing that and to talk about stuff. Like, I don't think number one killer of men is suicide.
Suicide, right? I tell people this on the regular. This is something that you are hitting on things that I am constantly banging drums for. It's you guys aren't taught to.
No.
And until only the last
Mickey and I actually were just having that conversation.
It's only been the last few decades, even the last few decades that it's become sort of we're sort of encouraging men to talk about their feelings a little bit more now. It's becoming okay. That's why, frankly, and as someone who also has a sister who's in recovery, but I appreciate what John Moxley did, and he just did it, man. He threw his career, he put his career on hold, and he went, I need to go get help because and he, just from reading his book and the impression I get about him is he's the kind of person who was like, I know I can't do this myself. I need to go learn how to not do it. And the only way for me to not do it is to do an immersive, intensive class, as it were, on how to quit this forever and what I need to do. It has heightened his game. It has changed him as a wrestler in a great way. But the fact that he went and did that in front of everybody, I'm like, if he can do that, boys, if that guy, that badass who bleeds all over the place and does all the things he does, can go admit that he needs to go to a counselor, because that's a lot of what addiction recovery is.
Even Darby Allin mentioned it in it was a promo. I think he was cutting on MJF, and he was like, I've been going to therapy. Maybe you should try it. Even Darby was like, hey, I want to climb Mount Everest and I get hit by buses and I am in therapy. I am going to get help. It's okay. And also I do want to point out, since I saw somebody in a Slack that I was in yesterday pointed out that June is men's mental health month.
Is it?
Or maybe it's
it's
men's health. I don't remember if it's men's health in general or if it's men's mental health. And he was saying it might be men's health month, and then he was tying in that mental health is also part of that, and to make sure you're taking care of yourself, because in that Slack it's predominantly men. And so so when you were talking, that made me think that I think it's either men's health or mental health. It might be men's health, but so.
As we said on our show all the time, mental health is health. Your brain people need to stop separating mental health from the rest of your health. It is part of your well-being. It's the biggest, most important organ we have. I mean,
I'm gonna tell you guys a quick story. My mom passed away when I was 21, and I was a college athlete, and I thought I dealt with it. But about a year afterwards, I remember I started getting these heart palpitations, and they started making me real nervous. And I don't drink. I've never really been much of a drinker, but man, do I have a soda. I did not anymore. I did have a soda pop problem. And I remember one day I drank a case of Mountain Dew by myself, and I had a caffeine overdose basically. And then it brought a panic attack on. And I had a complete, I thought I was going to die. I had a complete and total episode, and I was like, what is my problem? And I came down off it, and I was okay. And then for the couple months after, I kept having these panic attacks, and I just went to the hospital, and I'm like, something's wrong with me. So they did all these tests on me, and I did stress tests, and they did EKGs, and they're like, well, you have a resting heart rate of 51 beats a minute. That's pretty good. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a Division I athlete, man. And they're like, well, so your heart's okay. What's going on upstairs? And I just verbal diarrhea. And because I was a college athlete, they took care of me. They said, okay, why don't we get you talking to somebody? And I didn't know anybody that ever talked to a therapist. And I didn't have a problem with it because I'm an athlete. And I was like, if in my mind, if you have a problem, if I have a technique problem, I'm going to go to my coach. If I need to know some information, I'm going to go ask for it because I want to get better. So I saw a therapist my entire senior year of college, and it was 1, the best year of school I ever had, 2, the best year of wrestling I ever had, and 3, it helped me really align myself. And she taught me that you know, your brain has total effect over what goes on with the rest of your body. And I went away from that, like the therapy stuff, for a long time. And then about 2 years ago, I got offered a new job. I got offered to be a teacher at the high school I coach at. And I decided, sure, I'll do this. You know, my son I was a stay-at-home dad, and I wrote and I did all kinds of other stuff. My wife makes good living, so I am a pampered man, which is rules.
Yeah.
And yeah, my wife kind of wears the pants. So I got no problem with that.
That's
so
awesome.
Anyway, it is. She's the best. And so I took on a new life and like new career, and it was hard. Like my kids started showing signs of anxiety, like his dad has, and then the wife and I started having not problems, but I mean, like we're so busy, like the communication wasn't as good as it used to be, and like I could see it. I'm like, and I could see things. My brain wasn't doing the things I wanted it to, and like weird thoughts were. I'm like, okay, I think I need to talk to somebody. So I was getting ready to start therapy again, and then my dad died, and it was like, okay, now I really need it. And the day after he died, the morning after, my dad died at midnight or like 11 o'clock. And then at 7 a.m. I had my first therapy appointment, which was a happy coincidence, to be quite honest with you. And it's been going great. Like I got a therapist.
Good.
It's a man. It's good to talk to another guy about these things. And
I imagine, because usually it's women.
Yeah, and I don't mind talking to women. Women are good at this stuff, but it's also nice to hear a male
there's different
voice.
Things. We have different things.
It is. And sometimes I like that. And this time though, it's nice to hear a guy who can kind of break it down for a guy and just be like, dude, this is just anxiety you're feeling, and your anxiety wants you to feel bad. You have to understand that that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is a part of your brain that is comforted by being uncomfortable. And I bit myself. I'm like this, and I'm like, because we talk about that in sports all the time. Is like you need to feel comfortable being uncomfortable. You need to feel fine when things are bad. And the problem is my brain also feels that way. So that's not good. So we're working through that. And I feel it's been about 3 months, and I feel 1,000% better. And I mean, I still have days where you're up, you're down talking, but I mean, I just think that guys specifically need to talk about these things, or we go crazy. Like, and I appreciate this.
Yeah, and you've taken on, if I remember right, you've been doing you started journaling, right? Didn't you say that you...
Every night. I journal every night. I get and it's starting to piss me off, actually.
Journaling is my favorite.
I go in and out of how it's weird because like I love writing, but I guess because I do it so often, it's hard for me to like make journaling a practice. And I used to be really good at it. And so now I've trying to get back in the habit of journaling at least once a week. Like I set aside Tuesdays, because that's usually the night that I don't have a lot going on. And so I'm trying to make it so it's like maybe once I get into a weekly habit, maybe I can up it to making sure I make more time for it. But I think journaling is so important.
So
here's where I'm at. As a spewing technique, I journal when I need to journal, and I do it to get all the icky, disgusting, stupid things that just get it all out of my brain. Like my friend who encouraged me to journal before I really started journaling, but kind of like his voice came back at me later on, was leave it all on the paper. Leave all that. Just maybe you're just better off leaving all that extra BS on the paper. And I was like, that is such a that stuck with me, but I didn't start doing it until the last year and a half or so. But it's made a profound difference in helping me with my depression. And I mean, I already had mental health issues. I already had post-traumatic stress disorder before I had my right temporal lobe removed. So, which all of that spot is like depression and memory and processing. And so it's like, I'm really but again, I have a social worker and a therapist and an excellent neurological tech. University of Michigan Neurology, I love you all. You're the most wonderful people in the world, from the people who answer the phones to the doctors. They treat me like a human. They talk to me like a real patient. They don't talk down to me. They're great because they are they're very research driven, and they're also university professors. They read people really well. They're good. All the ones I've had are really obviously good teachers because they read me and go, I can talk to her like this, and we can have a conversation that she'll understand in these terms. And they get me, like my neurologist both of them have given me extra reading. Or, well, if you liked that book, do this, or let me send you this whole thing on sleep. And So, I mean, but you have to be your own advocate though. And that's the other thing is like,
yeah,
on top of it being like the barrier to entry being like, oh, that's for girls. Then once you get there, it's like, okie dokie, we can see you in 16 months. It's like,
right. Yeah. That's super.
So it sucks, but I'm so glad I'm glad you're doing it because one of our biggest problems was getting men on our show.
Oh,
we did.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was. It sucked. I mean, we did probably like 60 or 70 episodes, and probably only were able to get 3 dudes the entire time. And one of them was actually a patient advocate person that taught us a ton about how these organizations think and ways that because again, just like you said, and this is a few years now. This was during the pandemic, but very early in the pandemic. So I think some of that has changed. I think the pandemic changed a lot of that just because people got stuck at home and realized they both needed to talk to people, not just like couples people, but their own people.
Yep.
But I love that. I mean, when I've seen what you are doing, that's why I try to encourage it. And I have a ton of empathy for your situation because
I appreciate that, Mel.
I lost my father at 20. So, and that,
we lost my mom at 21 and my dad just passed this year. So, I mean,
and I know that had happened and
don't have much, but it's okay. Like, so I started journaling this year, mainly
the journey.
It is, I started it this year, mainly because like my friend was telling me about it. And, I saw the app on my iPhone that just showed up on the new iOS. And I'm like, maybe I should do this. And I started it probably early February before my dad went into hospice. So I had gotten myself into the habit. And as Sam knows, like when you're a writer, the only way you make writing really work is if you build habits. And before the pandemic started, I was stay-at-home dad. And like I built in like I could knock out 1,000 words in 40 minutes writing sprints. So I was like, this is how, exactly. I built myself up really well. It's how I was able to write 12 novels in 3 years. I was a machine. I could just go and grind.
You just do it
and
do it.
Right. And it slowed down when the pandemic started, but I was still focused. And now that I'm teaching, I'm out of the habit. Right. I don't have the habits anymore. Cause like I'm only teaching, I'm running the video production department. I coach, and then, just there's a bunch of other crap, and I'm doing grad school right now because I want to get paid more. So like, I'm not in the habit of writing books anymore, and it bothers me. But
overachiever, why don't you slow down just a little?
And I'm not trying to be an overachiever. Like, so that's the thing.
I know you're not. That's why I think it's awesome.
If I don't, I go crazy. My wife says you take on too much, and I realize that. But I mean, like, if I'm not doing something, then I got all this stuff that eats me up. So I need to try to keep myself. And the writing is good for me because I get to just get that stuff out of me. And the problem I have right now is I'm not as creative as I was, right? So my efforts are going into journaling, and I got mad at myself the other day. I'm like, I'm a machine with this 10 o'clock every night. Boom. Like the reminder goes off. I write for however long I have to. And like you said, Mel, just spew. Like it's whatever's eating me up that day. And I got mad. I'm like, I'm writing about the same. I was about to get JD and Mike show and get a little blue in my language, and I'll pull back a little bit.
Hey, okay.
I write the same fucking shit over and over again.
We'll give you
and it's like, thank you, I appreciate that. And I'm tired of it. I'm like, I'm tired of writing about them. I'm tired of working through the same stuff all the time. And like, I got like frustrated with it. And I'm like, all right, this is no longer. And I like what you said about doing it once a month, Sam. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to pull back on this because I need to go focus on being creative and like talk about like work through my stuff as opposed to just, this is what's going on here and there. And like, I need to get creative again. And it's not because I'm an overachiever, because I'm far from an overachiever. I suffer from like the worst case of imposter syndrome of anybody you've ever met. Like I'm horrible. I can't tell you guys how much I have to pay for my proofreading because I'm just the worst typist in the world. Anybody who follows me on Twitter or Facebook can guarantee that I am the worst. And my brain knows what it's supposed to say, so I never catch anything. So I wind up spending a lot of money on proofreading. But like stuff like that, like I need to kind of pull back on it and really start being me again.
Well, you're overtaxing your brain. Your brain what your brain is doing is glitching because it's over. Now all your neurons are going crazy now because you're overworking them, and they're doing so much that they're starting to have like freakouts. It's like when you have to put, when you get to that point where you're done with the story and you're like, okay, I've written enough. I need to put this away for a week or two and not even look at it. I'm all my artist friends, myself. It's like there's a point where you reach where you're like, okay, I cannot look at this anymore. I need to put it away. I used to have a rule where I would put stuff away for 2 weeks when I got to that point and not look at it. And I would and let it just leave it alone. Don't look at it. You're not on any deadlines. You're doing this for yourself. It doesn't matter. What do you care? Give yourself the 2 weeks. And that became that part of my routine because it's so important to just forget about it when you're doing.
Yeah.
Because at some point you've read it over 100 times. It's just the same thing. And it's like saying the same word over and over again until it loses meaning. So you have to stop and take a break and go back later.
So Robert Rodriguez, one of my favorite filmmakers, El Mariachi, Desperado, phenomenal. Mm-hmm. He has this great quote about clay. Like he's talking about when a potter's making, like a pot, I guess that didn't sound great. But when you're kneading the clay, at some point you start kneading it too much. And then it becomes mud, right? So there's a fine point where you have to realize, okay, I'm probably not going to make this any better than it is. I have to just kind of let it go into the world. And if it sucks, that's okay. This is okay for this one thing that I did to suck. And I've written some stuff that freaking sucks. I'll go back and be like, ugh, that's terrible. But it's okay because it's where I was at the time. And
but you have to. You have to write stuff that sucks or else you'll never get better at it.
100%. And
it's okay to fail. As a matter of fact, you have to learn to be okay with being a failure at that stuff to be better at it.
That is the hardest thing we have with kids. But as a coach, that is the hardest thing that we have with the kids is to teach them that you're going to fail. It's okay to fail. And sometimes you need to fail. I'm seeing that with my son right now. In first grade, he was a murderer. He was killing kids. He had a little headlock. He was beating dudes up. And then this year he moved up an age division and he was really sick this year. So he only got to wrestle 7 or 8 matches 6 matches the whole year. So he was struggling and he was like, I stink now. And I'm like, no, man, this is what you need to do.
This is just part of the thing.
Yes, you need to fail a little bit. You're never going to get better unless you see where we're at. And it's tough for him too, because I'm his dad, so he's got some, he loves wrestling, but it's a lot. So we're trying to create an environment where failure is okay. And there's so many people that I know that are like, failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. I'm like, man, that's how we burn all these kids out, is we teach them that they can be.
We burn everyone out.
They can only be perfect. Yeah, you can't be perfect, nor should you try to be perfect. I don't believe
there's no such thing. And
that's something that I had to learn a few years ago, was just perfection does not exist. It's not a real thing. It's just something that it's one more thing that society tells you have to achieve when you really don't. It's just a construct to make, and it burns people out, and it makes people, in some cases, for people who take it to the extreme, it makes them contemplate death and sometimes even take that step because they're not perfect.
Frankly, as a society, we just need to end that cycle. What you're doing, JD, and I think this is why a lot of people are reaching out to you, and what I think Sam and I have talked about this many times, is what you're trying to do is you're trying to break a cycle. And that's hard because it's routine and habit and all that stuff, even if it's bad for us, is comfortable and easy. And so what we're all doing when we do all these things that seem very uncomfortable or whatever, failing, talking about our feelings, being vulnerable to a stranger or to another member of our community or to our own children, especially to our own children, showing them that even adults screw up and fail and fall down on their faces and continue to do so even when they get to be big people, and we have to still get up and brush ourselves off. And if adults can do it, you certainly can. That's, I'm a coach and a teacher in my previous life. So I'm right there with JD on this, and it's my favorite thing to teach kids, we've got a lot of kids that are family members of the brewery family, and they do a lot of kid events that are obviously alcohol free.
Yeah, sure.
Because obviously they all have kids and grandkids that run around there. And, one of the brothers' kids came in and he had just, made it to the spelling bee in 3rd grade. And I really encouraging him and giving him a high five and how great that makes them feel. And it's that's what we need. That's cool. And it's like, it doesn't matter. You did this thing and you were cool and you were brave about it, and that's fine. And if you don't get any further, who cares? Like, you did a thing that's really exciting. You should celebrate that.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we have to change, but we also have to teach them the right way to do it. And that's just as, I mean, parents are my heroes. Most of the parents that I see that are doing it what I would consider right, the ones that I always loved working with, because we were collaborative. We were working together to help their kids, are my heroes. Because this is the hardest world, I would think, right now to try and raise a freaking kid in. And I even have a good friend who works with troubled teens and tweens, and he does remarkable work with mental health and stuff like that at this point. And I'm just like, I did it for 20 years and you're my hero. You've only been doing it for like 6, but because he talks to them and he teaches them, that's one of his biggest lessons is, hey, sucking is okay. Today we're going to have a whole class where we do everything and we are all going to suck at it and be okay with ourselves afterwards. And I just love it.
Well, since JD is here and we were talking about writing and how you were writing, in 4,000 words in 40 minutes and things of that nature.
Can't do anymore.
That takes a lot of practice.
So JD is here. He is going to talk about his book, Gaijin, which I did have the pleasure of getting an early version of it, and I got to read it, and I finished it. Like in the wee hours of Thursday morning. You got it? Yes.
Had to get it.
Yeah.
I feel like the person on the outside.
I love that
looking,
cover.
I'm the chick on the outside looking in. I'm gonna have to read it when it comes out.
I highly recommend it. It's really good. Like it's really good because it obviously, for us as wrestling fans, like it's easy to understand. I mean, it's really appealing, but I think even for non-wrestling, I was thinking about that as I was reading it, like for non-wrestling fans, I think that it would appeal to them as well, because JD does a good job of explaining things, because one of the central things in this book is a tournament similar to the G1, and so JD lays that out, like how it works and things like that. He kind of intercuts what it would be like reading the Wrestling Observer about this tournament. And so you kind of see, like, so I think for non-wrestling fans, I think they can it's easy to follow along, but then there's this other really big story that's happening on the outside that kind of unfolds, and like there was something that unfolded that I wasn't expecting. And so I messaged JD and I was like, I didn't see this coming. And he was like, oh, it's only going to get worse. And I was like, what do you mean it's going to only get worse? And so then I was like, I think like after that, I ended up reading like 3 or 4 chapters straight. And then I had to stop for a little bit because I think I can't remember what I was doing. And so then I kept reading and I was like, oh my God. I was like, JD wasn't kidding. Like, and then I got, awesome. And I don't want to give away anything, but I got to the end and I was like, wait, did I just, like, I told him I had to reread like the final paragraph to make sure I read what I thought I read. And then I was like, then I had to like sleep, and then I went to bed, and then like the next morning I was still thinking about it. And so I was like, so clearly you did a very good job, because then I'm asking him questions afterwards. And I'm like, well, I know you don't have an epilogue, but like, if you like, these would be the questions I'd want to know. But then I was like, on the other hand, if you don't do an epilogue, you kind of just let the reader figure out like what happened following that. And so, yeah, but it's great. And I'll let JD talk about it some more.
Thank you. That was you're the first person that I've been able to have like a live conversation about this book with, so I'm really excited. Only a handful of people have read it. My editors and my proofreader and John Muse. John Muse actually helped me book the tournament in this book, because I was like, okay, how do I? Because like when I started writing this thing about 2 years ago, I came to John. I'm like, all right, I got it here. Help me with this tournament, man. And he came up with some of the little twists in there. I was like, so I don't even know if he remembers what he did. It is cool. So John gets the attaboy for that, because he's one of the best minds in wrestling. So this is like this is a book about an American pro wrestler who's kind of washed out of the major company, and he gets a second chance in Japan. And maybe he doesn't really want that second chance, but he doesn't know what else to do with his life. So it's a guy, and unfortunately, he's forced to smuggle a bunch of amphetamine into the country because he has personal issues and demons. So the first chapter, I love this opening. It's like I totally ripped it off from Midnight Express, the movie, where he's in customs and he's got amphetamine taped to him, and they're in customs are going through his bags and they're like, "What's this?" And he gets all nervous and they pull out his mask. And he tells them, "Oh, I'm a wrestler." So I mean, that was me kind of spinning it. So like, this is really it's two stories, right? It's the story of a wrestler in Japan who inadvertently becomes something of a drug lord, and it's the story of the kayfabe is its own story. Like I tell the story of the kayfabe tournament going on from this heel wrestler who comes to Japan, reconnects with his old friends, and then becomes beloved. So in one story, you get a guy, our real main character, who's a kid who's in over his head, and then he manages to make his life a lot worse. Like you take a hero and turn him into a villain, and then the kayfabe story is you take a villain and you turn him into a hero. Like, and the stories have this one parallelist moment where they completely intersect, where both could go either way, and it jettisons out from there. And I'm really proud of what came from it, because like when you're writing independent fiction, like you're always told chase the trends, do what sells, write to market, and I suck at it. I am not good at writing to market. Like my books typically are very supernatural, but like also mixed with thriller. So like my main series is like, well, what if John Wick worked the X-Files, right? So they're kind of like that. That's where my head typically goes. And I had a writing coach who's like, you need to either stay, if you want to make money doing this, you need to stay in the tropes. You need to hit the tropes that they want you to hit. Yep. And I got so like frustrated with our conversation the one day when we were having it. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to write the nichiest niche book humanly possible. I'm going to write a book specifically for me, something that I would want to read. And like, you're told not to do that. So I just did it. And I had this story. I pitched this actually to DC Comics about 7 years ago, and they shepherded me for about a year in building this, and then Vertigo kind of died, and like it just didn't go anywhere, which is fine because I wasn't ready for it yet. So it cooked on me, and then I became a wrestling writer myself, and I understood the concept more. So like now I have a much firmer grasp on this little kernel of an idea. And honest to God, I think it's the best book. I mean, I'm biased in this, and I'm suffering from crazy imposter syndrome, and I don't think most of what I do is great, but I'm really proud of this book. I think it's the best one I've ever written. So
you should be. It's very good. And Nikki said that she wants to read it anyway, but I need to read it because Samantha needs to discuss it in detail with someone. I can tell she does based on how she talks about it.
She would know.
We would definitely know.
I haven't told her. I've told her little bits, but I don't want to give anything away in case she does read it. And I'm just like, so the only person I can talk to about it was JD, because I was like, nobody else I know has read it, and I don't want to give things away. So I spent like 30 minutes, I think on Friday, just talking to JD about things that were happening, because I was like, I have nobody else to talk to about this book.
I mean, as a writer, it's the coolest thing when someone messages you about something that you wrote and that you created, because you're doing this stuff in a vacuum, and you're like, is this good? Like, yep. I think it's cool, but is it good? Like, did I nail this? I don't even know.
Yeah.
So like, and to have like, Sam, you're like the perfect person to read this thing, because you're a wrestling fan, right? You're the person I wrote this in mind, like people like us, people from our world, like. And I'm like, is this going to appeal to people who aren't wrestling fans? I don't know. I honestly don't know if I care. Like, this is really an opportunity for me just to kind of, I said, it's been weird. I mean, it's not sitting on this book, but this book is the slowest one I've ever written. I finished it probably before I started my new career. And then I've been just tweaking it ever since then, like working on a little bit here, a little bit there. And like, I'm really excited to launch this Kickstarter, not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday. And it's given me some opportunities to do some cool stuff. Like I created the program for the tournament. Like, so there's an entry for every, like, I'm a Photoshop. I teach Photoshop in high school, so I know my way around Photoshop. So I was able to whip this up. So like I did.
I think it's so cute that Photoshop is still a thing, because I learned Photoshop
rules, man.
4th grade because I was in a history club in my elementary school, and my 4th grade teacher was so awesome. I always say this. This is like why I had a few good teachers in my life that are part of the reason I became a teacher, because I realized like what they did for me. And he was the first one that was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to make you the editor of the newsletter. That it was called History Hawks. And so I had to learn Photoshop back in, this is the 80s. So it was on an Apple. I mean, the old school Apple. And I'm like, I love that it's still a thing, even in a century, a quarter of a century later. And it's still a thing.
So yeah, I was able to put that together in Photoshop. So you get like we got the program, like I got the real program from the tournament. Every entry's in there with the little bios and histories. I did the brackets so you can actually trace the tournament. Like you can actually go through the tournament. That's something you can do in Kickstarter that you can't do. And like if someone just bought it on Amazon, like, and we're selling all my books. This is my 13th feature length novel. All of them are going to be there for sale, both digital and print. We're going to have, this is the paperback right now, so like it's done. This isn't one of those scam Kickstarters. They want you to fund it. No, I'm trying just to sell things. It's all there. Sam read the book. She can assure you that it is there. You know,
it was a digital copy, but I read it. It was right on my phone, and so which actually ended up. I'm generally a person who likes to have physical things. When I read them, I'm much more like, I don't have a Kindle. I want to be able to hold, like, that's just something I prefer. But I do have, like, I will read certain I tend to use my phone to read articles, but if I want to read a book, like, I physically want to hold it. But this, I guess it actually ended up helping with it being on my phone, because then I could kind of like pick up when I had a few minutes, I could pick it up and I could read like a few pages. Except for the only thing is a lot of times it was hard for me to stop, because then I would be like, okay, well then I want to know the next thing.
I hate hearing that it was hard for you to stop reading the book. That's terrible.
I couldn't put it down. It was the worst.
The point where I got to where I DM'd you that first thing, and I was like, oh my God. And so then I was like, let me see if I can like get in a few pages before I have to answer this email. So I was just like, so yeah, it was hard. Once I got, especially, I mean, the book was really good, but like once I got to that one part, I was like, okay, this is where like the book completely changed its trajectory and was going places I did not see. And that was the thing I kept telling me, was like, I didn't see a lot of this coming, or I would see it like maybe a few paragraphs before I would start like realizing, wait a minute. But yeah, there was something. Then there was the scene that we talked about, and JD said he hated writing it, and I was like, I really hated reading it, but I understand, like, it's something the character would do, and so I get it. But also, I was like, that made me hate the character even more.
I mean, like, it's gonna sound like a weird,
hard
crazy...
writing stuff like that, though. I mean, it's hard for the writers. So
well, here's the thing, and I'm gonna sound like a lunatic when I say this, but sometimes you're not in control of what happens. You're just like, this is what's happening, and like I'm a big Stephen King fan. He talks about like that you're just recording, like you're seeing it play out in your head, and you're just recording what's happening. And that happened, and I was like, damn, that's messed up, but that's what he did, so I have to write it down. Like, especially with doing the first draft. The first draft is like your account of what's happening, and then you go back and tweak stuff. But it was like, that's it's nice to hear that. My formal training in writing is in comics, so my comic sensibilities come through in my fiction writing, where like the reason why I do 1,000 word sprints is because that typically is my chapter length. My chapters are all about 1,000 words. Sometimes they go a little more, sometimes they go a little less, but they average about 1,000 words a piece, which when you're reading is like 3 or 4 pages. Yeah. So like it gives so my stuff, I'm very proud of this. I've worked on this. My stuff moves at like a really fast pace. Like it moves pretty quick. So like you can consume those chapters quick, and it kind of creates a rhythm of writing. And another little trick that I picked up is try to end, like in comics, we talk about like before you turn the page, you always want a little cliffhanger at the end of the page that forces you, forces you to turn the page. So I try to end.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah, thank you. I try to end all my chapters with like a little bit of even if it's just a question, like even if someone's just asking a question, like a reason to go, well, I want to know what happens here. So I mean, like you try to give people a reason to, like at the end of every, I try, and not all of them like this, but I try really hard to give a little bit of a little cliffhanger at the end of every single chapter. And it's nice to hear that the stuff I worked on works. So again, you're never sure.
Oh no, you got me. It definitely got me. And it did help with like, and so because I was reading it through I think even just like the books app on iPhone, which I've never used before. And so it would be like, I would read a few pages and it was like, I guess it sets a reading goal for you that I didn't know about. And it was like, you reached your goal. And so then it gives you this little like, oh, look, I reached my goal. And I mean, like, I'm in the trying to read this chapter. And then, so then I'm like, I'm reading more. So I'm like, I'm reading past my goal, but it gives you this little, it's like, look, you did good. You read 3 pages.
It makes me happy. And what's cool about the Kickstarters I've seen that Nikki and Daz are talking in the thread is like, I go a little bit everywhere. Like I just like to consume books. I have a Kindle. I read a lot digitally. I do like reading physical media. I love audiobooks too. Like now that I'm busy, like I just mowed the lawn before I talk to you guys and I'm listening to the new Stephen King book while I'm doing that. So I try to consume things different ways. So like all that stuff is for sale. Like if you only got $5, so you can pick up the audio, so you can pick up the ebook for $5. You know, if you want the paperback's there. We're going to have special edition hardcovers. The only time you're going to have a chapter to buy the hardcover is going to be in this Kickstarter campaign. I'm going to have an audiobook produced. You're going to have early access to the audiobook version of it.
Sweet.
Like there's so much. Again, this is what I love about Kickstarter, because Kickstarter isn't GoFundMe. I'm not asking people to like, help me see my dream come true. No, that's not this at all. It's just a sales platform. It allows me to just do something really cool around the release of this book. It allows me to, here's the program. I'm going to sell Black Phoenix's mask, right? Like you're going to have like for a special price. I'm going to have custom made.
JD's going to have me, but he's going to be like, he's going to get me.
I'm hoping.
I already tell.
So we've got and one of my most successful tricks, and this is like, it's become a character in the book. Right, where like at first for $250, you get everything that I print, like all my books, everything you want, and you get to be a character within the book. And I've got my buddy from Superhero Speak cool. that he always gets it. So it's a running gag because I've killed him so many times in so many books. If you go through my books, it's a different guy. I always got to make it a different guy, but it always has the same name. And I've got one little spot picked out because I know my buddy John's going to buy this one thing. So I didn't put it in there because it's being presumptuous, but there's one little spot where I've described it as him. I just need to change the name and it's going to be him. So there's lots of cool stuff that Kickstarter lets you do that isn't really allowed. I'm excited. I'm going to record an audio commentary for the book where I'm just going to like talk about the process of making it, talk about where my head was, and I'm excited to do that too. It's been one of my more successful. This will be my 7th Kickstarter that I've ran. It's a fun way to put out a book.
Yeah.
It's how my friend, our friend Obey Cube, who did our logo there, that's how he does all his art. And the shirt I'm wearing right now is a Kickstarter shirt. Same thing. He screen prints, he puts it on the thingy, and he's able to he shows us the stuff before. He's able to kind of set it up, and he does variants sometimes. So that's awesome. Very familiar with Kickstarter. It's such a great platform for doing what it does, instead of, like you said, being like, pay for this or fund this. Is like, no, I've already got the thing worked out. Yeah. It's just that this is what's going to happen if you want this and this and this. Right. And it's been really great. I mean, I'm excited for I'm excited to read it now. I also
I need you to read it so that we can discuss it.
I've been using my library like crazy because I ran out of Audible credits, and I tend to go Audible because it's easier for my brain to absorb.
Sure.
I do struggle because I have a vision issue.
I get it.
But I've recently been using my library because I ran out of Audible credits, and I did some audio, but I also picked up some hardcovers and some regular, and I was like, I like this again. Like, it's bringing me back to my childhood. And I was like, if there was a book sitting there, I was picking it up and reading it. That's me. I always have my nose in a book. So I'm coming back to it. And so I read, I read a bunch of Dave books, and I love having I was like, wait, the pictures and all these things I started. So I've read 3 or 4 wrestling books recently. I just got, Jim Valley just sent me the history of Portland wrestling, which I'm very excited. Well, he had it. He good brothered me into a book list, but
as a Michigander, did you read the Chic book yet?
I have. I love that.
It was great. Book. It was fantastic.
So good. And I got that one on audio, but I really want to buy a hardcover because I would love to have this. I read that as soon as it came out. It's one of my favorite books. It's
really good.
One of the best books on wrestling that's come out in a long time.
I agree.
And I read a lot of wrestling. I need to read Jim Ross's new book just because I've read all the other ones. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen at some point. It is on Audible, so I'll probably do it on Audible because he reads them on Audible, and I tend to like it that way. And I kind of want to hear the last chapter of his situation. I did the Young Bucks book on Audible, but I'm starting to like have this great appreciation for like, and I'm going back. So now I use both, and I'm reading. My good friend was like, "You've got to read this because there's so many things." And I'm a Rush fan, but I'm not like some kind of like Rush fanatic. But Geddy Lee's biography called My Effing Life just came out last fall. And my friend has been like hammering a couple of us that are in a circle. He's like, because of our backgrounds, we have similar backgrounds. Andy's from Toronto, so he's from this part. He's from Midwest Canada, so he's from our part of the country in Canada. So he had all the Midwest angsty stuff that goes on in your life, but Canadian version.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But so I've been reading this book and it's freaking fascinating. But that's one of the things I do love about I read a lot of nonfiction. And I made a promise with myself a while ago that I would start mixing fiction in again with nonfiction. And I broke that promise over the last long time. So JD's book is going to be like my barrier for entry.
I'm the opposite.
Like, if you don't do this.
It's so funny. I'm the opposite. I read so much more fiction than I do nonfiction. Like if I'm reading a nonfiction book, it's probably going to be a wrestling book if I have it. Like I keep telling myself I should write a nonfiction wrestling book, and I try, and I don't have the mental capacity to just write that much nonfiction. Like I would write. Like I did some writing for Garrett and Fight Game, and I did some stuff for other sites, but like I would just be like, ugh, after writing like those articles, and I couldn't imagine writing a full book like that. So I have nothing. Like
your Sting thing was really good. You did a really good job with the whole like Sting, like the whole history of Sting.
Thanks,
character.
Appreciate
that was a really good kind of because that was historical, and that was like all about like here's where he started, and I understand, but
yeah, that's a couple thousand words. That's easy to do. Like
it had a vibe, but it had that similar vibe. I mean, I think you could pull it off, but again, there's so much.
Thanks.
The biggest thing is like research, and because I'm a nerd, and like I said, I'm just such an enormous nerd. Like Garrett recommends some of these, like the book, that Power Failure book, the one about GE that Garrett was into, because he gets into heavy, like dense books sometimes too, and I'm like. I'm listening to that right now because I'm aiming to be the most boring person in the universe.
I get it. I like the audio books, the dense ones. I did It. I don't know if you ever read It. That's a thick book.
Oh, I actually read It. Okay, JD, we've been through this before, but I'm going to remind you. I'm a Stephen King adjacent. We all graduated from the same high school. He lived in the town next door to mine.
So cool.
The stuff he writes about, it's what's funny about reading Stephen King, especially the older stuff. I read It. That was the longest book I had ever read at the time. And
it's a long book.
I was like 14 or 15 when I read it. And it's like 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to read a 1,000-page book. And I read it. I did. And it was good. It was really good in all fairness. Like that is one of his better books. Like it's still, and I mean, I feel like it holds up, and some of the movies that have come out recently have been more like awesome. I mean, I love the original miniseries for nostalgia reasons.
Yeah, me too. Changed my life.
It's amazing, but I mean, my first Pet Cemetery.
Yeah,
was one of the first two I read. Dawn for October and Pet Cemetery were my first two like adulty novels. So that should tell you how my scope of reading goes. Military history to horror. That's me.
I've never read any military history stuff. I really should open up a little bit.
Me and Mike could go for hours. I read that book, that Inside the CIA book I read recently even. So it's...
Dasa has a book recommendation. He said, as we're talking about books, I highly recommend I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue as a great summer read after you've read JD's book, of course.
I'm excited for this now.
What genre are we talking about, Dasa?
Kickstarter launches?
It starts not this Tuesday, but Tuesday the 11th. I was hoping to have a link approved. I submitted to Kickstarter a couple days ago, and I have not gotten my official approval yet. I will. They're just kind of they just can be kind of slow sometimes. So that's going to launch, and then you can we click it, follow it, so you know when it launches right away. And then it's going to run up for like a month. We're going to run it for 30 days.
Nice.
And then it'll be cool. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we tweet the link because as Mel and I were
Appreciate it.
talking about it before we went. But we went. She was asking if we had a link, and I told her that you were trying to get it, but she's like, I guess it's actually better because just popping it on the screen, most people aren't going to write that down.
Mhm.
So we'll tweet it so that they'll actually go click the link and post it. And so, but yeah,
I appreciate it.
I like to make it as easy for people as possible because that's the smartest way to do it.
Man, the hardest thing to do when you're trying to sell people something is to make them jump through hoops.
Exactly.
So the easiest is just go, look, here's the link, click it, which is why
Yeah.
Amazon works so great. It's because all it is a click and then it's there. So Kickstarter, there's a couple little steps. Like I said, you try to like inundate them with all this cool extra stuff that they can, they can get.
But
Like I
it's
said,
not that
I
overwhelming.
can't believe that you're gonna have
No,
a Black
it's not.
Phoenix Max. That has like, I was like, wait a minute.
gonna be
Especially
cool.
because like, I mean, it's cool, but like that mask has significance. So now I'm like, and now that I know that I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I'm gonna end up forking over. I'm like, now I think I need a Black Phoenix mask.
Yes, I
but
think you do
it's
need a
like
Black
going
Phoenix
to
mask.
get, like,
I think I need a Black Phoenix mask now.
I'm
I
excited.
don't even know what that is,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's cool.
the
If
main-
Sam thinks it's cool, then it's gonna.
It's
be
the main
cool.
character.
It's the main character. That's his gimmick.
It's
Is
his
Black Phoenix, and he has
Nice.
a mask.
Yeah.
That
And
could be fun.
that's-
See, I would
and that's
be.
what
I
they-
would be into
That's
something
what they
like that.
found on him when he, like he said at the beginning, where he said he was smuggling things, and they were like, "What do you have?" And
Oh,
he's
the
like,
mask.
and
That's
he
great. The
throws
twist.
out the mask.
Okay.
And,
It's
I
his
mean, the
mask.
masks will be you'll when you read it, you'll
Don't
understand.
ruin it, Sam.
No, so
Sam.
you'll understand there's more significance to that mask, and so it's very cool that I love that there's a program and that there's a tournament bracket that goes with it. That's such
I
a
like
cool
that
thing.
too, just because
The
that's
bracket
cool.
also has
It is.
significance to the book as well.
It's cool.
That's
And that's
cool to me as a wrestling fan, as a nerd who's done brackets in my
Yeah.
notebook. Who could I have at least 3 notebooks nearby me that have brackets from some tournament over the last 5 years.
well, it's also part of the book too, where one of the characters actually has the bracket.
That's
sheet
what I'm
and
saying.
I
That's
like-
has significance. to
He's-
the
he's
character.
keeping track of it. So it was fun to make. Well, I had to make it, and that was actually a bitch writing this thing, was doing the brackets and because I had to figure out the dang tournament before I could
Right,
write
yeah,
that
because you
part
have
of
to
it.
do the whole story in
I had
your
to do the
own
whole-
head first.
I did. I had to.
It's like writing. Oh my god! Like writing a character bio seems easy now that
It
you've done
is,
something like
compared
that.
to that.
You're coming to that.
and I got to the end. I kept screwing up the math, and I'm like, God dang it! I had to go back and rewrite
Yeah, 'cause
stuff.
He'll have the times like how the match,
Yep.
how long each match lasted. And so he has and he'll have what the finish is, and then they'll be and then he updates you on the point standings as you're as you're going through it, which is really cool.
You know
tried
what?
to-
Here's what
I
I'll
tried to
say
mirror
is
Dave.
that, and I have some good friends
Yeah.
who used to back in the day do a comic book podcast, and I was a very casual comics reader. I got most of my comics off of other friends that read comics. I watched the old X-Men series. I had a passing knowledge. I had an understanding, but I was not a hardcore comics reader. But I really loved their podcast because of the way they broke down all the comics. So for a lot of the 10s and late aughts, I was listening to their podcast, and they had they were English lit majors and stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and they had a great vibe and everything. And and they used to tell us the same thing, because we had a general chat podcast where we talked about everything. I mean, everything. And we both had the thing we always used to say to each other is, I don't always know what you're talking about, or I have very little idea what you're talking about, but you're just having so much fun doing it, and you're just enjoying it so much that it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And even Moxley talked about that when he interviewed about his book, is even if you're someone from the outside, if you're a half intelligent person and you're sitting at a table with a bunch of people who are talking in kayfabe, you can start to pick up on what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, will it appeal to a non-wrestling audience? Who cares? But it probably can, because that's fun. If it's a good book and it's a good story, it doesn't matter. The setting just is
And I don't even think you have to, even if you're a wrestling fan, you don't even have to be a fan of New Japan to understand. Like some of it I did because
Some
I
people
could
don't even know what
figured out
Gaijin
like where
means.
some of the names were coming from, and like because I realized like the descriptions, and I was like, okay, this is kind of like this. So of course, no, I'm not going to go into it, but I think
Some people wouldn't even know what Gaijin means. They would look at that and go, "Ooh, this is like a horror thriller movie." Sorry, this is a thriller book. This sounds really fascinating and interesting. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll make some new wrestling fans.
You never know.
But yeah, like you don't have to watch New Japan. Like this, the tournament is laid out really well. It's easy to follow. You kind of, and then just from the wrestling fan aspect of it,
Gaijin is like super.
You're
slang,
reading that
though.
this tournament is playing out in front of you, and it's kind of interesting because I'm also, I mean, I've been behind and we've jumped around, but like I'm also watching BOSJ as I've been reading this too. So it's been kind of having like the tournaments have been like just reading about tournaments and I'm watching one at the same time. But yeah, it's great.
And if you're not, like I said, if the wrestling stuff isn't there, it's hard. It's a thriller. Like
Yes,
it's about a guy.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah,
would you say horror or thriller?
No, it's definitely a thriller.
Sounds like a thriller from what Sam's saying, though.
This is the first time I've ever written a book that does no supernatural stuff in it. This is just a story about a guy who gets in trouble with the Yakuza in Japan.
Cool. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Midnight Express meets The Wrestler.
Oh, this is like right in the wheelhouse of my friend John too, because he's such a like.
I
he
think
loves
John will
Yakuza
like
the game, and he's
it's,
read books about them. He's read books about the tattooing culture. This
Yeah,
is like what I was saying
love
is
that.
like most people don't even know Gaijin is like the super slang word for it. I've started to try desperately to learn a little bit of Japanese over the last while, and that's like a super, super reduced like slang version of it.
That's
so
what I like. That's why
you wouldn't even know.
It's so part of wrestling culture.
Some people could think it's a ninja thing and pick it up and they wouldn't even know the difference. And then they're halfway, and they'd be halfway through it from what Sam's saying and they won't even care.
It's a dirty term for a foreigner. It's like
it's a really mean.
Well,
and it fits.
It fits. Once you realize what's happening and you get into it, and even once you like get into the later chapters, you're like, oh yeah, that name does fit him.
All right, I'm sufficiently sold. Just give me the link. Jesus. All right.
Send her the link. Give her the link.
We will make sure we get this link up. And then so Daza, to circle back about what he said, I Hope He Finds You Well is a comedy about working in an office where a woman who is close to getting sacked accidentally has access to everyone's email exchanges. And then Daza also recommends Falling by TJ Newman is a great thriller about an airplane pilot whose family is kidnapped and he's ordered to crash his plane into a city to get them released.
Now that's up my alley.
That
sounds
really good. Daza always has, I mean, obviously since he's like in the know, way in the know.
Also Falling. I'm gonna add that to my Audible right
now. I mean, one of my favorite things about our Discord is our book channel.
And somebody actually asked way back, and we were in the middle of a conversation. I didn't want to interrupt. And somebody asked way back in our early on in the chat if we had a Discord. I don't know if that person is still watching. Broadcast Live Studios asked if we were on a Discord.
Yes, Broadcast Live Studios. You need to email gg@fightgamemedia.com and let him know that where you saw that we had a Discord, that you heard it on here on Powerbombshells and you were talking to us. And it's a friendly group and we don't want problems. So as long as you're cool and you're coming there to be cool, we have a lot of fun. I started a conspiracy channel just for Mike. So we have Conspiracy Corner. That's where we all share our alien theories. And
I'm still not on Discord, but Mel keeps telling me, she was like, you should join it just for conspiracy theory.
Well, Conspiracy Corner is pretty good. It's quieted down a little bit, but the book channel is one of my. I mean, I'm frequent the book channel because I'm the kind of person that will read just about anything. Because if I'm learning about something new, I'm happy. Like, because even if it's something that I didn't understand, it goes in my brain, and then eventually, like, I feel like it comes out when I need it.
Yeah. Well, then and then when the book, and then when you have the Kickstarter link, you can post the Kickstarter link in there in the book club.
We'll post it.
Can't wait. Am I in this Discord? I don't think I didn't know you guys had your own Discord. I thought you
No. This fight game.
No,
media
it's
Discord.
a
the
fight
fight
media.
game. Oh, gotcha. I
Yeah.
misunderstood. Yes, I will definitely believe me. I'm going to be posting that thing everywhere. I'm going to be
Good,
so
you should.
damn
Worth
annoying.
it.
It's not going to be funny. For the next time.
Yeah, it's fine. That's why you have your own channel.
We have our own. Mike and I have our own with Viking Media, and we have our one with the Voices of Wrestling Discord network. So we're extra annoying. We're everywhere.
That's awesome.
Mike's a
Like,
machine. I'm fortunate enough to have a partner who is a nut when it comes to like clipping our show and
He is
getting
so good at
various.
it.
We have grown our YouTube channel from
You
nothing.
guys have. You guys have done an incredible job.
It's Mike. I'm his wacky sidekick, which I have no problem doing. Like he is an absolute machine with getting this stuff done.
I'm not gonna lie,
And, like,
most of me giving out to him on the Detroit front was so that I could get Mike Gilbert memes made at me, because I've got to tell you, one of my favorite things
He's
is
the
when a natural disaster hits somewhere near Mike. I have to have him make me a geographical explanation of it, and he will actually go in and make me these like old Microsoft Paint and Mike and I get each other's humor. We have our humor fits. We are in the same. And then you were talking earlier about coping. I cope with humor almost entirely.
Same.
I'm almost to the point where like therapists have been like, okay, stop being funny and pay attention to your CBT. Like, stop deflecting and actually approach your problem. Right. So I'm so
I just bought Falling on my Audible. I'm going to be listening to it. So
Good job, Daza.
There you go. See,
can't wait to listen.
He would have rather you
Yeah,
had
that
bought the hard
really-
copy from him, but
I
since
know.
you can't be in England.
I'm not in England. I can't do nothing. And there's like, I assume there's like, with you can't buy books in England and read them in the United States. It's kind of like a PAL NTSC thing. That's a video joke that I'm sure nobody got, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with that.
It's
I'm
okay.
Somebody
Somebody got it.
At that.
I was gonna say Daza probably got it. That's
Somebody
okay.
will get it somewhere. That's what's important.
Oh. Dude, thanks
You
for
make
having me,
jokes
Andre.
to amuse
you're
yourself, and if
welcome.
somebody else gets it, then you luck out.
It's kind of how I live life. Actually.
That's my life right
I
there.
entertain me, and as long as I'm entertained, it's all
Dude,
fine.
I'm the person who like trips and makes fun of myself. So,
Same.
so
Thanks.
when you said that, I was like, wow, JD and I would get along great.
Dude, you guys are the best. I love coming on and talking to you guys. I love being an honorary broad. We got to have you guys on Mike and JD show
Yeah,
sometime if you can
definitely.
stay up late, because I have to record with a guy who lives in
I'm
Hawaii.
usually up, so
I would stay up late for you guys because
I'm
So-
usually up. We've seen
I
that's how
love
I ended up.
hanging out.
That's
with
how
you
I ended up
guys.
on there talking about
Oh,
Patrick Dempsey, and I ended up getting
Yeah,
a
right.
movie
See,
recommendation.
you got her
so-
to watch a movie she hadn't seen
I'm so
yet.
glad that worked out. Speaking of which, I heard you on BJ Bethel Spaces yesterday before it died, and it was quite impressive, Sam. Nice work.
Thank you. I was in the middle of talking, and his Wi-Fi, he had storms come through, and Wi-Fi knocked it out, so we didn't get very far.
I was
But
walking the dog, and I'm like, "What happened?" I shook myself.
Yeah, because the other co-host was like, well, I'll just like, Sam's been in here, so we were trying to figure out what happened, and I'm like in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden it just cuts off, and I was like, oh. And then so BJ, he messaged me later. He's like, sorry. He was like, we lost Wi-Fi, and I was like, it's okay. I was on Collision coverage yesterday, so it's like I had to start prepping for that. So I was like, it's fine. But
Yeah,
We
it was,
got all our weather. He's like,
it-
we're all right in a line.
Yep,
Illinois, Michigan, Ohio. We're
Ohio.
like right.
garbage weather.
So we all get the same weather. As a matter of fact, I didn't know
Awesome.
that it was doing that, but I did have to leave because high school gyms aren't great for reception. So to get those pictures tweeted out to you, I had to like walk out of the gym.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I saw it come across my phone, and I was still on Collision coverage because I was behind a little bit, and I was like, I want to see what Mel sent because I know it's either Shelly or it's Saban or it's both. So, but I had to wait because I was like, I have to get caught up on what I'm doing, and then finally,
I was like sitting there going, oh,
yeah, and like
that's right.
BJ was like talking about the banner in the background. I'm like, Alex Shelley is in this picture, and that's all I'm looking at. I'm not paying attention to anything else in the picture. I'm just gonna be straight up honest with you. I was looking at Alex Shelley. That's it.
He tried to ask me, but I was on the way to the show, so I was like, sorry.
To join. Yeah, he said he was running a test because it feels like an indictment is probably coming soon for Vince, and so he kind of wanted to play around with spaces and kind of know how it works, so that if and when an indictment comes down, he can hop on spaces pretty quickly. So
I think BJ is one of the most important voices in wrestling media because he's
Agreed.
a legitimate journalist who's
Yes.
not interested in his access, who's not interested in trying to play nice with anybody. He comes at this like a real journalist. And
Yeah.
Mike and I like having him on our show too because he's a lot smarter than either of us. So he can break down kind of what's going on. And I appreciated what he was doing yesterday. And I think we need more of it. I think we need more people. Like Mike and I make jokes that we're the anti-media. Like we just pick on the idiots in wrestling media. But I mean, we also don't solve any of the problems, like are just as guilty. So I think we need more people like BJ Beth, like what you're doing, Sam, and just like talking about the realities of what's going on in professional wrestling and not just, try to play nice because, maybe Nick Khan or Chris Legenta will let us have an interview someday with Otis,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
Nailed
true. And it is the access journalism is a lot, or access media is a lot of what's the issue. And I get it. Some people just like if they're not, especially if they're not trained with a journalism background, they don't know how to handle it, or they don't want it's a really tough subject to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about. It's hard to talk about this stuff day in and day out, especially after reading like Janel Grant's 63-page lawsuit. And that was really tough to go through because I read it. And so Mel went through and she read it too. And that's some really hard things to read. But also I think having read it makes me where I can't let it go. Like I will just keep it sucks talking about it. But on the other hand, like I can't not talk about it. Like I have a very small platform and I'm going to use it to
as well. You should.
To talk about it. And that was actually one of the topics today was that, there was some movement. Janel Grant, her team they've agreed to a stay because the DOJ is continuing their investigation, which we keep having to point out. Like it's not just Vince McMahon in Janelle's lawsuit. It is WWE as an entity, as a company. Just because Vince is gone, just because John Laurinaitis is gone, does not mean problem solved. WWE is named in that lawsuit for a reason. And so now that the stay has been issued is because it appears that we're gonna have it appears that there's something serious happening and they can't have her lawsuit not in the way, but like what they're doing needs to come first. Mm-hmm. And so it needs to be paused. And so and because her case is being stayed, also that means that because Vince, John Laurinaitis, and WWE are all trying to take this to private arbitration. Well, now they are paused as well. Like they can't do anything. They can't continue trying to take it to arbitration because her case. So everything is on hold. But I talked to BJ to clarify because I assumed this was the case. Should charges be brought against Vince and say he goes to trial and he's found guilty, her case can still go through. It's a civil case. It's completely separate. So her case, just because it's on pause right now, doesn't mean it's going away because he could very well, even if he's in jail, she can still go forward with her lawsuit.
It's because ultimately the bigger thing, and like he and I have been chit-chatting a little bit, but the idea is that once you seat a grand jury, you have to keep those people and you can't keep switching them out. So once those 12 people are seated, they need to stick around for the case. And they were seated as part of both sides of the case, both the Department of Justice cases and the civil portion of it. It almost lends credence to their civil suit and is a really good sign because remember when BJ spoke with us, he talked about the fact that you don't keep them seated this long unless you're going to use them. And then as soon as we get off during the week after we talk to him or a week and a half after, that's what this is. That's them saying, we need this grand jury to issue things like arrest warrants or, search warrants potentially. We need them to be focusing on this. So it's a joining their thing, but it's a pretty good sign that there's some form of criminal indictment coming here,
right? And then
to
on
somebody,
top of this, it's happening.
That's what they need it for.
It's happening in SDNY, which is the Southern District of New York, who are very busy. They are in addition to the Vince stuff. They are dealing with Trump. They are dealing with
just
Sean
wrapped
Diddy
up
Combs.
this Trump ridiculousness, and
and I think
dealing with it.
they are dealing with Sean Diddy Combs. The Harvey Weinstein, he's probably going to be tried again in September, and they may have new things happening that came out last week. But there may be some other women who will be coming forward. So they are very, very busy. And JD and I were, not JD, BJ and I were talking about it, and I asked him, do you think like part of the reason they didn't come forward, because we thought that there was possibly an indictment coming as soon as Thursday when this broke, but then we were like, well, then I wonder if they got word that like the Trump jury was like, they were coming back with a verdict. And so maybe they held off on it. So, I mean, it could be, I asked him if does he think this is going to come like next week or in a few months? And he said he can't really tell for sure, but it seems like he was like having her civil lawsuit stayed seems to suggest that something is coming sooner rather than later. So
that's a really significant step. It really is, because they wouldn't have, it's on the docket until a judge sees it otherwise, until it gets to the judge. It's just on the list, waiting in the queue until its turn pops up. So for them to actually, and that could be forever. I mean, it sucks, but it could. It really could take forever. But they're the ones. So them putting a stop on it. I mean, it will what's better for her too, because when it does come back, they might be able to escalate her case through the court system quicker because of the fact that they held her back and all this. But it's really like, when I heard that, I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
But I think you're probably right about the situation with Trump. And we don't even know that like some of these people don't have that some of these charges aren't interconnected in some way. Like one of the things
that was something that was brought up on the Spaces yesterday.
There was a vacuum left behind, like in the Epstein situation and things like that, is that that didn't just go away. Somebody, whether it's fragmented or not, like someone took that over. Somebody still has, and there's still names out there, and I got to believe that the FBI and such are on that still. So
and we still don't know for sure when they served him with the subpoena, the federal grand jury subpoenaed Vince last summer, like we still don't know for sure everything that was involved, but they raided his office and they took his phone, and we don't know if they still have his phone on top of
I mean, theoretically they do, because it's being held as evidence somewhere.
Yes.
Good Lord.
And those text messages from Janel that he conveniently doesn't have.
As if that would
they're all on the phone that the FBI has.
In the 21st century, where you can literally go to the phone company, compel them by court order to actually give you his phone records. Like it's they can get my Google account right now. They could get my phone records. They could get this very conversation and use it as evidence if they wanted to. People are silly. I think the one benefit to the courts right now is that these two they think they're above the law so much, and they're such dinglings that they don't understand that their behavior is admissible in court.
I know. Keep doing what you're doing. That's why I told BJ. That's why I told BJ. I was like, keep doing what you're doing, because I mean, for them, because I was like, they could
keep dumbing yourself into prison.
Just keep doing it. Well, and that's why. And now it keeps getting. BJ brought it up, and then I've seen it brought up since then. Is like the next press conference, somebody needs to ask Paul Levesque if he's read the lawsuit yet, because it's been months and
no one's gonna do that.
They probably aren't gonna let Lucas back on.
No.
He's probably not gonna get back in there.
Hey guys, I want to thank you for having me on. My wife's kind of knocking on the door right now. I got to go do family time on a Sunday. Thank you for giving me the time today. I love hanging out with you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for giving us so much time and telling us about your book, and we will definitely post it.
Appreciate it. And I'm going to get in touch with Sam, and we'll set up something for you guys to come on our show coming soon.
Absolutely.
Do your plugs.
Best place to find me on Twitter at JD_Oliva. Kickstarter for Gaijin coming out June 11th. You can listen to Mike and I every Thursday night in the Voices of Wrestling YouTube channel or the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel. We go live at 10 o'clock 10:30, Central Time, which is 11:30 out in the East Coast, and it's like 4 where Mike's at because he's living in Hawaii. So yeah, and then if that's not good enough, doing like the live stuff, it's perfectly fine. Our podcast is available on the Voices of Wrestling Network or the Mike and JD Show, available on any podcatcher that you have, or you can just catch it on YouTube later on. We do great numbers with people who don't watch us live. So love to have you there. Love to have you read the book Gaijin when it gets a chance. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, JD.
Take it easy, guys.
JD.
Hey, you too. Yeah. So thank you for JD, and we'll definitely make sure we get that stuff out. And
we'll have all those links out.
Definitely. And I'm gonna plug it. The book was really, really good.
I'm really excited.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm friends with JD. It was very good, and I was really impressed with it. Especially like it took a whole other turn, and now thinking of it as a whole. Like I see, yeah, it's definitely.
I'm excited now. You got me all excited.
Now that I know what happens, like I will probably go back and reread it and see like what I've missed heading up to that. But yeah, it's great, and so I highly recommend it. But we will get back to our to our topics that we are talking about some other wrestling today, I promise. And it says it in the title of our show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the main thing I think with the Janel stuff is that, that seems like a really big deal for her.
That's giant. That's enormous.
It is something we're going to have to keep an eye on. It seems to me, I'm not, that's definitely where BJ's expertise comes in, because he is involved with, he's a real journalist, like outside of wrestling. Like this is what he deals with is rape cases and civil cases. And like, this is what he does for a living. And so he has a really good background in this stuff, which is why I like talking to him, because he helps me to understand things. And it feels like an indictment is coming sooner rather than later, and it is not going to be pretty. And if you already thought the bots were bad, now
it's kind of crazy right now. There's so much weirdness. It's like, because like we were talking about, is that these people don't understand that they're like, everything you do is admissible in the court of law. And so these things that they have done all along, then I haven't read the lawsuit and all of these things, that will be a part of Janel's case when Janel's case is made. And I think a lot of people, I saw one of the things I did see a lot of is they made her put a stay on it because it's bullshit, because everyone knows it's bullshit. And that messaging, that narrative where you had the people coming out in defense of WWE, like, that's because she's just trying to get money. And I'm like,
it's because things are about to get really, really bad for your king that you think is above the law and can do no wrong. Things are about to get real bad.
I think even a dummy, like, this is funny because you're tying yourself in knots to defend what's going on, which means that you know what a big deal this actually is. Right. It's like somewhere in your subconscious, some thing that you learned in American history or political class, somewhere along the line in your life, pops back up in your brain when you hear this and goes, no. And it's remarkable to me the hills people are willing to die on over
a man
this
who
situation.
doesn't know you exist. He doesn't know you exist. He will never know. He does not give
literally
a shit about
push you out of his way and not and I mean,
yeah.
He there was that whole thing Trump
if
said
he
where
was on the street and a bus was coming, he would sacrifice you for himself.
Yeah, it's the it was the thing that Trump said about the shooting people and not getting away with it.
Right.
You know what? Metaphorically, it feels like that for a lot of these guys. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that the shoe is finally dropping on them. Like I mean, I don't know what to say about what happened this week in the Southern District, but I mean, those are convictions. That's a jury of your peers. That's 34 counts and a unanimous jury.
Yeah.
That's called the justice system. It's not rigged. It's not a fake. It's not a witch hunt. It's not anything.
Right.
That's called due diligence. You went before a jury of your peers. Mm-hmm. Evidence was presented. They spoke. And this is how you don't respect the law.
No, because the law is not in his favor, so he doesn't respect it.
Law. And so it's like, I didn't get the outcome I like. Well, these are important people running around undermining the law. And so worries me because you see the tribe, the hive mind of people that are just doing the narrative of
right.
Just because she's a gold digger, that's why the DOJ is saying this. And I'm like, stop it.
No.
I want to be clear. The DOJ is doing this because something big is coming.
Because they have built their case.
And they have no reason to interfere with civil court.
They got what they need to move forward, it sounds like. And
civil court is not their wheelhouse. They have no reason to deal with it if they don't care about civil court. Civil court is like, it's like court light in a lot of ways. I mean, it's not, but it is because.
Yeah, and right now the DOJ's case takes precedence, but like you said, it could eventually help her later on whenever. So her case does not go away because of this. Like, that's what I wanted to make sure, like, I was clarifying with, because that's why I was like, especially because it's a civil case, which is like you said, it's tried completely separately. It doesn't have the same, it has different, they have different, like, precedents of what they have to prove.
A different kind of lawyer will argue it.
Yeah, right.
It's a different kind of lawyer. If I'm a civil lawyer versus a criminal lawyer, that's a different kind of lawyer altogether.
So it could it takes 5 more years to get to Janel's case. That doesn't mean it's going away. And like you said, whatever happens with this could bolster her case. More information could come out to help her case. And at this point, depending on how things go, more women could finally feel safe enough to come forward because of whatever happens with, assuming, again, this is all assumptions, but what seems very likely is that there are charges coming and that he is going to be indicted. And so once her civil case, the civil case is unpaused, basically, that means that opens it up for women to come forward and join her if they would like to. So this could look very different in just just depending on how long this takes. Because assuming he's going to do trial and things like that, how long the trial takes and all the things that go along with that, but that does not, Janel's case does not, her lawsuit does not go away.
I feel like this strengthens her case, frankly.
I feel like it does too.
I think that anybody who's trying to kid themselves into believing that this makes her look weaker is literally doing just that. They're kidding themselves.
Yeah.
I don't take you seriously if you are saying that. This essentially tells me that, and a judge could look at this once it's all through and go, because of all of this, she gets bumped to the front. That judges have that is okay. A lot of the Trump case got bumped to the front.
Yeah.
They
did.
Right. Because of the importance of them.
Yeah, and Daza says that some fans seem to think they owe Vince McMahon because he produced something they love. Vince didn't do it because he wanted to elevate wrestling and entertain people. He did it for power and money, which Daza, you're 100% dead on. He did, and that's what BJ Key is pointing out. Like, WWE and the people who work for WWE are there to serve Vince, and that's their only purpose. Like, at the end of the day, that's what they're there for, and that's what they've always been there for, is for him to have power. And then with this power comes where he thinks he can get away with the things that he's doing and that he's done and that he's treated these people for years. And again, it's not just these women. There's also the Jimmy Snuka stuff. There's also
ages. There's the Ring Boy scandals. There's the Rita Chatterton.
There's layers of and again, I've said this a million times. This is just the stuff we know about. There is so much that we do not know because this is just the stuff that has been able to leak out. And this stuff the Ring Boy scandal has been around since the early 90s. The stuff with Rita Chatterton has been around since the early 90s. The stuff with Jimmy Snuka was even before that. Like, so this stuff has been there for decades. And like, there's so much that we don't even know about. And I can only imagine and some of this we've talked about, maybe more of this information doesn't come out till he dies, because that's the only time these people feel like safe enough to come forward. So but just a little bit we do know, if this was it, like, this is plenty. Like, what we know is plenty.
Let's say that there's some sort of indictment or warrant or something that comes out where there are criminal, like where they say, trafficking or illegal sex, whatever. Whatever the thing might be. Once that comes out, it essentially validates what she said.
Right.
If even one more person comes forward and you have that other situation where there's criminal, like, pending criminal case, whatever. If he's not convicted, but whatever. I mean, again, O.J. Simpson's the victims of that situation ended up with a civil case, but bankruptcy and all of these things and whatever else. So it could go that route, unfortunately. But more likely is that if there are criminal indictments, if it says this woman was definitely trafficked, this is a different woman entirely, that might actually really, I mean, BJ even said to us that he knows of people that could potentially step forward, and if they want to go on the record that they have the thing. But I think until you get, because I mean, we all know how hard this is. As women, we know how hard it is to get any kind of, I mean, why didn't they say it sooner? We've heard it all. For those of us that are my age, there's a douchebag on the Supreme Court, and they proved to us back in the late 80s that they didn't give a hoot about women, and they were going to put that guy on the bench, and that was the end of it. So, we know where we stand. I mean, but I just hope because of this, because once the criminal stuff moves forward, that is a really big, like, if I'm a lady that maybe was holding out and had doubts, well, now the feds are involved. And
and the thing is, the feds have been involved since last summer, and we've talked about all the reasons.
Like openly involved.
Well, and then, and so I that was one thing I was going to ask BJ. I assume that means that if any women need to come forward and want to join Janel's lawsuit, I would assume they have to wait till after the stay is over. I assume they couldn't do, like, I'm sure I don't know that they
I don't know. I would assume that
so that's something I meant to ask.
That's
something I meant to ask BJ yesterday, so I definitely will ask that, because I assume that because it's stayed, she can't add to her lawsuit until the stay is over.
But the petitions might be able to be filed, which would mean that they could sit there, and as soon as it's open, they could come flooding in.
I don't know how that works. So
because sometimes you can sort of, even though the case isn't moving, the things that administratively go on around the case can still continue to move. It's but I don't know. See, again, he's the one, because he knows the Southern District's process the best, so he knows how they do. I will reach out to BJ and get an answer for that. Because and he's great. He's awesome. He's been wonderful to us. He's been chatting me up as well about this stuff, because it's in my wheelhouse. So, because I've been asking him questions about the actual court stuff, because I'm interested in how this functions. I mean, it has broader account. Plus, the two of us just talking about the utter disregard for the process of law, by these men, that grosses us out.
And since we are talking about WWE, we'll stick with this for a little bit, because they had some other things that happened before. Like by Tuesday, I had like all of our notes filled out. Like
I know, Tuesday, it was kind of hilarious, because
I go back and add some things that happened Tuesday night because of NXT, and I don't watch NXT, but I saw it was playing out all over in my Slack channels and on my Twitter timeline and in DMs, and like, so I saw everything that was happening, and then I had to go back and add more. So we had stuff. I was like, our whole show's like booked. It's Tuesday.
It was great though, because it made it so easy for me to write the description, and you helped me out with the title, which I love. And when I finally got to it, you know, it was like, blam! Look at all of this.
So, if you have somehow missed it, Becky Lynch is officially a free agent for the first time in, I believe, 11 years. I believe is what I had heard. That her deal expired as of midnight yesterday. She is no longer contracted with WWE. From what I am hearing, she is going to take an extended hiatus and just take time off. She will listen to other offers, but doesn't have plans to sign anywhere imminently. It sounds like she's just going to take, her daughter's, I think her daughter's like 3. So these are obviously very important years and things like that. So, you know, it sounds like she's going to take some time to be with her child, and maybe to rest.
Take her back to Ireland to get her a proper education.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not sorry.
But sounds like she's going to take, it could be a very long time before she comes back. It sounds like from what I have heard, though, is that it feels like she will probably return to WWE when she is ready. That doesn't mean that she won't listen to other offers, which she should. Any smart wrestler should listen. You've only got a few places to go and make a lot of money. So you should listen and then come back to said company and be like, hey, company A says they'll offer me this. Company B says they'll offer me this plus this. And I get this. So what are you going to offer me? So yeah, I think that it's probably, and some people have said that when Becky, assuming she returns to WWE, she will be the highest paid women's wrestler in WWE history, which she has more than earned. I think if she is able to do that, that's phenomenal. A lot of the women, even the highest paid women, are still criminally underpaid when it comes to male talent. She should also, I hope she gets a big merch cut, because that's where a lot of money comes from. So
seriously, that's like the one thing I do.
Her next contract, wherever she goes, she is able to keep a lot of that merch, money, and I hope she makes a shit ton of money wherever she goes. And assuming she comes back to, that's still my assumption, is she goes back to WWE, because she's always been there. I mean, on the one hand, of course, she's always been there. Her husband's there. Makes traveling a bit easier when you work with your spouse. On the other hand, she's done everything that she can do in WWE. There's literally nothing else for her to do, unless she just wants to add on more title reigns to become, like, maybe she wants to have more title reigns than Charlotte has. So of course there's that, but there's not a whole lot she can do as far as maybe there's some other goals that we don't know about. Maybe she wants the main event and do some sort of a match that's a woman. Maybe she wants to do some stipulation match a woman's never done before. So, I mean, sure, there's things like that, but just on paper, like, she's won every title she can win. It's not like they're not going to let her wrestle for the undisputed WWE championship that Cody currently holds. Like, she's not going to get that opportunity. So she could potentially go to, another company where she gets to wrestle new people, win championships there. I mean, so there's always those possibilities, but I would not be. And of course, she has friends there. Mercedes is there, and her and Mercedes did a lot together as part of the Four Horsewomen. So there's always that. Soraya's there. Some other people that were in WWE are there. So there's always that possibility. But I personally I feel like she'll probably go back to WWE. But somebody did make a good point. I think it was actually Garrett who was saying that. Was that Garrett? Somebody I was talking to made the point that if she went to AEW, she'd only have to wrestle once or twice a week. So in theory, like, if that was the travel thing with her and Seth and traveling with her child and things like that, there's less travel involved generally. So that could also be something that she looks at as well. So yeah. And Lauren asks a good question. I mean, and we've asked this, is outside of money, what is the selling point of Becky going to AEW if you're Tony Khan? New championships and new opponents. I mean, the real answer is getting your opponents, one of your opponent's hottest stars of all time. Yeah, that's the real answer. I mean, yes, sure, yeah.
Not, I hate to be like bottom liney about it, but
Mercedes, because Mercedes is not Sasha. Like, as far as character wise and things like that, that's somebody that's a version of Sasha / Mercedes that Becky has not seen before. And so you could potentially get something fresh out of an old feud. Mm-hmm. With something like that. So there is that. And I'm sure, there's other things that we don't think of that as a wrestler, I'm sure they're like, hey, like, I need these things. Right. That don't have anything to do with their opponents or on TV and things like that. There's behind the scenes things. There's contract, there's those things that may factor into what she wants as well.
Health insurance.
Yeah. It could be, yeah.
Tony Khan gives them health insurance. So, that's like in her.
Yeah, there could be, I was gonna say, so there could be things that maybe she wants to work in an environment where that has never had anything to do with Vince McMahon. Maybe she wants to work in a completely different environment that doesn't have a lawsuit. That doesn't have.
Just wants to take some time off, like you said, and be a mom. That's critical time frame. Your kids like really starting to their brains are starting to really become they're starting to have opinions. They're starting to really branch out.
And for all we know, maybe she wants to have it. Maybe she wants to try for another child. So maybe she's taking time off for that. there's all kinds of reasons for her to want to take a hiatus, and she's been wrestling constantly. I mean, other than injury, she's been wrestling a lot. Maybe she's just burnt out. Maybe she wants to spend extended time in Ireland with her family that she doesn't get to see very often. I mean, there's, all kinds of reasons for her. Maybe she wants to work on some other projects that have nothing to do with wrestling, and giving her time away will allow her to do those things. Maybe she writes a second book. Maybe she wants to try her hand at acting. Like, there's so many reasons that she could just want, and maybe she does. Somebody suggested that maybe she'll come back when Seth comes back. That's possible too. I mean, maybe that's enough time. She's at a point in her career where she can use this leverage to her advantage.
She can, Daza.
And then maybe you can be a guest on her show too.
There you go. You can be her co-host if she needs one.
Yeah, and Daza makes another point that surely she'd have a future in WWE as a trainer or agent, etc., which would be more time with her child. Yeah, that definitely, because I mean, she's not gonna wrestle forever, and unfortunately, women have shorter in-ring careers on average than men do. So that could be, I'm sure she's thinking about
tougher. Athletics is tougher on our body than men's in general.
And so there's, that's a factor too. Maybe she wants to take some time to completely heal up, and then maybe she wants to see what her options are outside of an in-ring career. So maybe that is something she wants to look into and explore and figure out, like, what's next once she finishes the in-ring
point
side
that
of
you
things.
make, though, about maybe she's pulling back while this illegal bullshit sort of runs its course, because it would be very easy to sit back for a few months after something like this announcement this week and see what happens because I mean, if they're going to do that, they're probably going to move fairly quickly, because they're not going to let that shit get out unless they have some actual things.
Yeah, and that's actually that's the conversation that BJ and I have had, because we've talked about Becky.
So maybe she's trying to, because that's not good for her career.
No.
So she's kind of in a great place right now. She can shop around. She can do what she wants. She can say that I'm taking time to be myself and live my life and do whatever and see what the heck all happens, because I don't want to be associated with a criminally indicted.
Right. Yeah. So maybe she just wants to get away from that environment for a while. And LaRon makes a good point that if she does come into AEW, maybe she could bring in some more female voices behind the scenes to add to the creative team, because Jim Pepperman is paying dividends for the women already. And yeah, LaRon, that's an excellent point. Yeah. And she would be another strong voice and somebody who's been in the business for a very long time. I mean, yes, you could say, okay, well, then she's got the WWE point of view with things, which is true, but considering the amount of women she's wrestled and the things that she's done, then perhaps, she just brings a different perspective, or brings in, she's also been there post Vince. So maybe she can see, like, hey, this is what, we were doing over here with Vince out of the way. This is what was happening. I mean, so there's always that type of,
just her creative energy in a different environment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you switch, from writing, if you switch your writing group from one group to another, it's a different experience when you're doing the writing thing. So
yeah, and USVA guy brings up a point that lawsuits are a thing in most companies these days. If Becky goes to AEW, she may possibly experience one with Stephanie Vacker and Roosh issue possibly going overboard. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly that. Yeah, that's a valid point. So it'll just be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, I don't think any of us would be shocked for her to return to WWE. I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up in AEW. But I wouldn't also be surprised if she takes, she can take the rest of the year off if she wanted to, and she comes back and wins the Royal Rumble or something. I mean, there's, I wouldn't be, and I would not be shocked if when Seth returns, she returns too. That wouldn't surprise me either. But she's in a good place in her career, and she's also in a place where her career where she can afford to take the time off and not worry about her spot being taken. She can. Oh yeah. So she doesn't have to worry about that. She's
kind of carved out her own spot. I mean, the one thing that you can say about Becky, again, she forced her way into that three-way, whether they liked it or not. They wanted it to be Charlotte, but we wanted it to be Becky in WrestleMania 35. And she made sure she was in that main event. I mean,
right.
She was like, I don't care what you guys want to do with me. I'm gonna.
She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to worry about that. She can.
She has nothing left to you said it, but she has nothing left to prove. She's one of the best WWE, the best women WWE superstars that's been. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. And so then also this week in NXT, there were some big surprises.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about it with JD that they needed a challenger for Roxanne for her NXT Women's Championship. That's rumored to be, if I may be mistaken because I don't watch NXT, but I believe, wait, no, I was gonna say, I believe that's the title that Julia was gonna, but no, I think that's not correct. I think they're creating a new title and that Julia is gonna be fighting for that, I think. But regardless, Roxanne needed an opponent, and that opponent is gonna be TNA knockout Jordynne Grace. And Jordynne was in Royal Rumble. We've seen Jordynne has been hinting for a long time that, you know, this was not the only thing that WWE and TNA were doing. Something else was happening. From what I did read afterwards, this seems like this was not the plan. She wasn't supposed to come in here. It just was something that worked out, and they didn't tell Roxanne ahead of time.
Oh, good.
So Roxanne's reaction to Jordynne was real.
Genuine.
She did not know that was going to be her opponent, which I think is really cool. And Roxanne, I haven't seen as much of her in WWE. I did see some of her when she was Roxy on the Indies and some of the Women of Honor stuff, and she is very, very talented. And so I think getting to wrestle, and for me, Jordynne is one of the best women's wrestlers ever. Like, just out currently, she is one of the best. Like, Jordynne is, I've been a long time fan of hers, but she's just improved so much, and she's so good at what she does. And she needs, like JD pointed out, there is no knockouts division really because everybody's left.
That's too bad, because that used to be one of the things.
Jordynne needs the challenge. Jordynne needs to face somebody like Roxanne, like, because she, I do feel like, Nikki and I were talking about it this morning. I do feel like when Jordynne's when her TNA contract is up, I think she will go to WWE. I think that's where she wants to be, and I think she would be phenomenal at it. And I do
there's falling apart at TNA the way that JD and you are saying, then what possible?
Yeah, and it's the only other thing for her. The only other thing is if they let her become world champion, which they've done before. That ended up not working out, but Tessa blew up her own self.
Well, Tessa can,
but Jordynne she's the only one that I could see potentially becoming world champion there. Out of, like, if they were going to do it have another woman do it, it would be Jordynne. But Moose is their current champion again. Broken Matt is wrestling for the title. Like I said, I'm like 4 or 5 weeks behind, so I haven't seen much storyline movement. I assume that Broken Matt's probably going to win that title. And then I don't know what their title picture looks like after that. So sure, maybe they could give Jordynne, but if it sounds like, it sounds like TNA doesn't know what they want. And so I don't know.
So Jordynne, the people in charge of TNA, they're not wrestling people. They don't know what they just want the money and the ad revenue, but they don't really know what they're doing, and they don't really care what's happening.
They don't, not at all. And so
that's all I can really gather from, like, reading the Observer and stuff, is like, it just sounds like a giant cluster over there.
Yeah, and it does.
Just
I
need to hang on to this property because TV is losing its mind, and we know that this generates some kind of ad revenue, even though we don't understand it at all. So we're gonna hang on to it.
And again, like, I don't want TNA to fail. We've been through this. We talked about this a million times.
They had that whole, like, reawakening the last 4 years.
They were so
we were watching weekly.
And they were so close to just being where they should be. And then they self-imploded because they got rid of Scott D'Amore. Motor City left. Deanna left. Like, people were leaving left and right. And then now they're offering per contract things instead of, I think there are some people who do have, like, regular contracts, but a lot of people are per appearance now. So, that's so on the one hand, they could bring in, like, you've got Mustafa over there. But there's Mustafa, if they're not going to take him out of the X division, there's only so much he can do there. There's only so many people he can wrestle. So they put the ceiling on themselves, but there's so few places to wrestle on TV. So you need TNA, you need these places where people can go if they are not, because AEW can't sign everybody and WWE can't sign everybody. So TNA need somewhere to go, and they need a paycheck, and they need exposure, and they need to be able to experiment with their characters and all these kinds of. And then there's, like we've talked about, there's production, there's catering, there's hair and makeup, there's all these other things that go into making a wrestling company. And so they need places to work. So I hope that TNA can figure it out. But right now they are a mess, and it's very unfortunate seeing where they were in January to seeing where they are at the beginning of June, and how quickly. And that's the other thing, is how quickly they have fallen from where they were at. And then you have this locker room who doesn't have their leaders anymore. Like, it's from what everybody from.
No, they're helping out at a gym 20 miles from me.
Right.
They're doing like generating ad revenue for and like carrying your company. Yeah. But instead, I mean, like, I'm not upset. Believe me, I'm so happy. That was like awesome. And it was a great match. And they gave those kids like everything. And it was so much fun. Great. Because that's who they are, though. But that's the point. Yeah. That's what you lost.
That's what you, right. And and somebody, like when I talked to Kevin Knight about it, he was like, now you have to have other people have to stand up and fill that role, because we're still here. We still have a show to put on every single week. We still have a pay-per-view to put on every month. Like, so you have to have that locker room has to figure out a way to come together. You don't
have leadership, and you don't have structure, and you don't have like the company. You don't know where the company stands. Like, is the company behind us? Are they not behind us? Are they going to support us financially? Are they going to support us like publicly in terms of like getting PR and marketing out for our shows? Do they even understand how to market us and who to market us? Yeah,
like they're hiring they like have not hiring, because street teams don't make anything, but like they've put out. Oh my God, they put out tweets for. They've put out tweets for street teams in new cities. So it sounds like potentially. Yeah, no, but TNA utilizes it very well. But on the other hand, AEW doesn't do a good job sometimes of advertising when they're coming to companies. So
they certainly don't.
They don't have a street team, and they sometimes don't, unless they're in big markets. They advertise
to me that they're coming to Chicago and not Detroit a lot, though.
But they don't send talent out to the news stations and to the radio stations unless it's a really big market that's struggling. So we talked about it a few weeks ago with that Path to All In series. Like, they need to have those wrestlers, especially like your Thunder Rosa and stuff like that. You need to have her on TV. You need to
be on the AM Texas. Good morning, Texas. Channel.
Right. You need to be on you need to have these people radio stations.
Listen, one of my guys on the Fox affiliate actually likes wrestling, and we've had like Drew McIntyre on when they've been in town and stuff like that. So it's like, it's there. There are affiliates that will do it if you just call.
Yeah, like we have something here that's a Charlotte Today that's like it's on one of the major channels but like Darius has gone on there and talked about Ashe. Like, so Perfect. He's gone on there. And so
like they usually do it on like PBS, or the major thing is like Around Detroit.
Yeah, right.
But they get on those shows, and that's useful. It's meaningful. I've seen a lot of the local theater companies are utilizing that as an outlet now. I think it's really good.
It should be
same vein.
Right. So, and then of course, besides Jordan Grace, we also had a surprise right at the end, where Ethan Page showed up, and he's
back to all ego Ethan Page now.
He did. He just delivered this perfect line, and he said, "Whoop that trick, yeah, I'm about to," and then he beat Trick Williams' ass. Like, it was just perfect. Like, I went back and watched the clip, and it was, we've talked about this. I don't know how you drop the ball with that man. It's absurd to me.
First time I saw him on the Indies was all ego Ethan Page. He was with Progress.
He was with Rikishi. Like, he's great on the mic. He's great in the ring.
He's got actual combat training. He's like a black belt in karate,
he's
like highest level.
So charismatic. Like, I hope that Ethan. So it came out like after Ethan showed up, and it went off the air like right at the end, and of course leaves the cliffhanger. So it was reported, yes, he signed with WWE. Well, the next day Ethan goes and cuts a promo. I'm not signed anywhere. think it might be storyline purposes. Is probably what it is. Kind of like when Danhausen
that would jibe with that gimmick.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the Danhausen thing where he kept trying to get Tony to hire A&W wrestling. He kept trying to get Tony to hire him, and he had actually been under contract for a while, but he was playing it out on Twitter. So I could see this kind of being the same thing with Ethan.
Be smart.
Because apparently, so it seems like Ethan has signed with them and has gone to NXT, which is very smart. And Ethan is an asset to anybody who can sign him. With TNA falling apart the way that they are and the way that they screwed him on the way out, I didn't think he'd return to TNA. So I'm not surprised that if he did in fact sign with WWE, where it sounds like he did. But good for him.
NXT seems like a place. I mean, because AEW, because it's so bloated, and that's why the argument is it's so bloated, the roster's so bloated, and we can't have him here, and that's why I feel like NXT would be a place where he would be very, very good.
And I don't watch NXT before.
Me either.
I haven't. But from what I understand, like from people who watch, like they really enjoy what NXT has been doing for the last year or so. So if he's going anywhere in WWE, it feels like NXT is probably the best place for him, because even you have, they only have a handful of matches on Raw and SmackDown, where NXT is more wrestling focused. I mean, they do have the character stuff and they do things like that, but it just feels like that's probably the best place for him to be, at least for right now. And so
he can build himself up there. They've got plenty of people on the main roster. They don't need to put him on there. They're going to have to teach him how to wrestle their way anyway. So
that is true. That he does have to learn.
I mean, they're going to put Emmy. I mean, it's a silly thing. Is like the fact of the matter is they really do just. I mean, whether you knew or not, no matter how good you are, you're pretty much going to go through the PC anyway. And it's like, I can't even imagine if like Will Ospreay had signed with them. They're like, okay, you're going to NXT first. What?
Right. So yes, but for Ethan to be in NXT, I don't think. I
think that'll be a great place. I think he could be
good for him.
He could shine really big there.
I think that
he's got a big personality.
Told me,
so
I think it was BJ, because I sent him the clip of it, and I think it was BJ was like, he is gonna be AEW's version of Swerve and Athena. They're as in, how did you not do anything with this guy? Look at what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be like, yeah. Cause obviously people are like, how did you drop the ball with Swerve? How did you drop the ball with Athena? And then he feels like Ethan Page is going to be that, like, how did AEW screw him up? Like how did this happen? Like he thinks Ethan is good, which I could definitely see that being the case.
Maybe this will end up being better for him. I'm happy for him because I enjoy his wrestling. I saw him on the Indies. He was one of the first wrestlers I saw on an indie. So I do respect that he has a lot of talent and he's great on the mic. Like,
yeah, he's fantastic. And then Vatican says, I mean, I like the pay-per-view when Ilya was beating people, but he's on Raw now. And Ilya was out here having bangers during the King of the Ring tournament. So I was like, that's the one good thing about having to cover WWE.
Nice.
I got to see Ilya have some really good matches.
I've heard that there's been a handful of really good, like, worthwhile matches. So I feel like, okay, well, at least Sam got that match.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. I did not care for the fake AJ Styles retirement that they did on Friday. That was very it was very obvious what they were going to do. I was hoping, because and that's what people have been hoping, is since they have the relationship with TNA, that AJ would go back to TNA for a little bit, because they were telling him he can't have a shot at Cody anymore. And he comes out in a powder blue suit, obviously not salmon, but they're doing like the thing in the back where like he shakes hands with, like, LA Knight comes up to him and he's like, if the rumors are true, like, I hope you're, like, thank you. And then like Cody comes up and talks to him. He whispers in Cody's ear, and then Good Brothers are waiting for him. And he's starting to get emotional. Good Brothers come with him to the ring. He's cutting this promo of like how his son graduated from high school and they had the graduation party, and he realized, like, maybe I want to be a phenomenal dad. Of course, that gets booed because, being a good dad is not good in wrestling. Just like we don't want Bryan Danielson.
Didn't we just talk about this and breaking this freaking stigma?
Yeah, right. Yes. So move to that. And then like he calls Cody down and he's kind of passing, he says he's passing the keys to the house that AJ Styles built to Cody. And like Cody said, he's talking about how their match at Backlash is one of the best matches he's ever had. And I was joking that under his suit shirt, he was going to have a TNA Across the Line shirt on. And then they're like, Cody's like taking his hand and they're talking, like going to each side of the crowd. And then AJ turns around and clotheslines him. And then he like just starts beating him up. And then, the Good Brothers were somehow able to hold off like 5 security guards. Just the 2 of them were able to hold them all.
Well, that's because we all know wrestling security guards suck.
And so AJ, the one cool thing about that segment was AJ did a Styles Clash from the steel steps onto the floor. So that was pretty cool. But I was just like, and so Mark Henry tweeted later and said that AJ did a good job. But I was just like, I was like, just say it. Do your faux retirement. Show up at Slammiversary, hang out, get some last matches in, and then have TNA induct you into the Hall of Fame, and then come back to WWE and in your career there, and go out as a Hall of Famer in both companies. I mean, I still think he will be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame eventually, but like, give him one last run. You aren't doing anything anyway. Might as well let him go over there and wrestle a few of their wrestlers. Maybe hold another title for one last time. But yeah, that is not.
So are you telling me, Sam, that AJ Styles' retirement fell flat?
I am telling you. I am.
Yeah, I do.
Right. Vinkin says Cena was watching the segment and was like, Cody, no. Exactly. That's what, as soon as his music hit, I was like, this is a trap.
It's a trap. Tarp.
It is a tarp. All right. So I think that's all of our WWE talk, which is more than we've had in a while. That didn't involve a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So we do have Mercedes on the Mercedes Monet's picture on here, because we're going to talk a little bit about the Double or Nothing aftermath, because obviously we got to cover the pre-show and haven't been able to talk about everything that's happened since then. So obviously one of the really big things along with Mercedes becoming champion is that we had the return of MJF, which we talked about the possibility of it happening, but we didn't think it was going to happen that soon. And they did do it. And somehow Wardlow did not murder him, but Wardlow did tweet right after, because MJF he used the Wolf of Wall Street line where he said, I'm not going anywhere. But he said, because Nikki and I thought the same thing, because he said, I'm like a wolf. And me and Nikki were like, that's Wardlow's thing. And then I was like, oh, and then he said, I'm not leaving. And I was like, so he's turning it into that, but it's also a little bit of a shot at Wardlow. And Wardlow caught it, and Wardlow tweeted about it. And was like, now you're calling yourself a wolf.
Places like, bro.
Yeah.
But so, of course. I mean,
yeah. What were your thoughts of having MJF come in and cut a whole ass promo during a pay-per-view?
Much like many other MJF segments that I was starting to tire of in the Dynamite hours, this felt a little bit overproduced. It was a little bit much, because we had the conversation about the women's match that was on the pre-show that should have been on the main show, that actually proved that it should have been on the main show, because it was an excellent match, and
yeah,
it was better. My biggest problem, listen, I know everybody loves MJF, and I know that things are down and stuff like that, and it might be because of him and it might not, and whatever.
Right.
His promos are too long. They're too long. They are too long. And you cannot, and I feel like you need to be able to say, Max, wrap it up. Like, right. You can't sit here and tell everybody your life story during the thing, because then it does start to feel like WWE to me, which is promo, 5 hours of talking,
right?
50 guys running in, somebody hits somebody, promo. And then, he ends the whole thing with, I guess what he's saying is, what we've all thought the whole time, which is he's probably signed the whole time, and this has just been a big show. And they used Wardlow, which kind of makes me mad. And I got a tattoo, which is great, but also like it's a good thing he's not.
Is it even a real tattoo though? It almost looks like it was drawn on.
Well, here's my thing in this instantly. Okay, so my Jewish half, as my grandma would put it, because he's used his heritage on TV and he's talked about it and he's done the recorders. Well, then, okay. Well, here's a little insider tip to people that don't know. It is actually against the faith to deface your body. Part of the reason that it was such a horrible thing in the Holocaust that they tattooed Jewish people was because your body is a temple and that's against the religion. So I immediately, as soon as he showed it, Bob was just dying. I'm like, well, that's just against the faith, and he just laughing over
and because
I know it's irrelevant, but
the
to
chip
me
is a little. The chip was like placed a little weird, looked a little crooked, so that's why I was like. And so now I've seen a few people ask, they're like, "Is that even a legit tattoo, or did they just do that so he has this like dramatic effect of?"
I mean, I don't. It's totally.
Or did he just did he just not get a great tattoo for his first tattoo?
It's. I mean, again, it's not, as someone put it to me, it's not the war crime that Cody committed on his neck.
Right. Of course, it's not.
But
on his neck,
it's not.
Cover it. Somebody said he could easily cover it, so when if he goes to WWE, he can cover it up.
I mean, let's be real. Like, we all know that, like, the reason you get a tattoo on, like, the place, I mean, even the places I have them, like, because I have all places that I can cover them up.
Right.
Now, again, I knew I was going to be working in places that, so I was cognizant of when I got my tattoos. I wanted them, but I also wanted to be able to, like,
can be covered if they need to be.
I worked with kids, and tattoos are very distracting to kids.
This is true.
I mean, there's nothing. Seriously, you grab your arm and just be like, "Is that real?" Yeah. And then you have to have a discussion with them about like, they're like, "Where did you go and how did you get?" And it's like, when I turned 18 years old and was of legal age and had my own money that I made by myself, I went out and made a decision as a grown-up adult to do this thing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But it's just go.
Yeah, ahead. Paul says even as an MJF, that promo was too long. I agree. The promo was too long, but I feel like, first of all, you don't need a promo in the pay-per-view, especially where they had it.
It was too long in a pay-per-view that ended up being almost 6 hours long.
Right. It should have just been the lights go down. He looks at Adam Cole. They have a stare off, and then that's it. And then you wait till Wednesday. And you have MJF.
Tease it, make it build suspense. Yes,
and then it's 3 days. Have MJF come on and explain.
And then he can cut his 45-minute promo on Dynamite instead of in the middle of a 7-hour pay-per-view.
Say what you need to say. Tell everybody that the end of your run sucked and you understand why people hated it. Because he did. But I'm like, you could have saved all of that for wins. I mean, I guess my only reason is I guess they did it because it was in Vegas and that's where all this shit happened 2 years ago. Is he, when he nearly walked out of the company, he ruined Wardlow's night. And
that's
Wardlow's
fine, but Wardlow's
still recovering from that. What was that?
I said it's fine. It just doesn't need to take the length of a match for him.
They should have the stare down would have been cool, and then you have people tune in on Wednesday to see why MJF showed up, and then you listen to him. Then that's what I just don't understand why it happened there, because you still have him returning in Vegas. You didn't have to have the whole promo there in his 2002 Triple H cosplay.
Yeah, right. Plus, you had a triple main event, so you had a lot going on already.
Right. And so I guess we won't stay on this pay-per-view too long since everybody's obviously been talking about it. So what did you think of the pay-per-view overall? And then what was your favorite
I liked the pay-per-view. I thought it was really good. I thought the matches were good overall. Anarchy was fun, but it is what it is. It wasn't my favorite pay-per-view. But I thought there were a lot of good matches. I really liked the Moxley match. I love watching Will wrestle. That was great. We pretty much knew he was going to be the international champion. But there was a lot of extra filler that felt forced in it.
They could have left out like that FTW match that didn't need to be on that card.
It should have there's no excuse for that. It was funny because even Paul, we were in the Discord and I was on the Discord because we usually do a thread during shows where we're all talking. And he was obviously in the building, and so was Garrett, and they were talking to us and showing us pictures during that match. And literally like half the building was either empty or on their phone during that match. So at least for a change, they didn't get up for a ladies match.
Yeah.
But
we went
Paul was on his phone telling us everyone's on their phone during this match.
Right. Yeah, it was. And I hate it because I love Shibata and I love Hook. I do not like Brian Keith in this situation.
Brian Keith is great, but
I'm super happy Brian Keith is getting TV time. That's the only thing I'm happy about, and I hope Brian Keith eventually is the one who turns on him. I hate Brian Keith with this. And I was talking to a friend of mine who is from Texas, and so he's seen Brian regularly at local promotions, and he was like, he's very good. Like he has a very good character. He's good at character work. He's good at promos. He's great at matches. Like he doesn't need the help. And like he cannot stand Jericho like Jericho. And so when I told him that it was Brian Keith, and he was like, I hate it. He was like, I'm glad. He's like, I'm happy for Brian as far as he gets on. This means he's going to be on TV more often, but he was like, I hate it because he doesn't need it. And he was just like, I can't stand it. And then he went back and watched it, and he was like, oh no, it was a promo from Wednesday. That Learning Tree segment was a complete waste of time. And I hated everything about it. And so he said the same thing. And he was like, he put up that GIF and it said, look at how they massacred my boy. And he's like, this is what they're doing to him. I hate it. But yeah, I agree. The pay-per-view, or it wasn't my favorite AEW pay-per-view by any means. I don't think it's as bad as some people thought. I thought there was some really great stuff on there. There were some really good matches. There was stuff that didn't need to be on the card that they could have shortened. And yes, Finken brings up the point. Let's talk about the Statlander angle. We all knew it was coming. I'm glad they finally did it and quit dragging it out. Just got it over with. Mm-hmm. I did. And it's funny because Stat did cost Willow the match, but in a babyface way, when it turns out was really a heel way, because we knew she was going to cost her the match. We just didn't know how. And then this, in her defense, is, she's trying to tell the referee, like, this is wrong. Watch it. You know, she's trying to help her when in fact she was opening it right up for Mercedes to win the match. So she costs her the match in a babyface way. Then she turns around and does the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn thing where she turns on him on her on the ramp. So I thought it was pretty well done. I like that I knew that Stoke was going to be involved with it. So I like that type of thing. I don't know how I feel about the aftermath when they did the promo, like explaining it. It just felt, I don't know, not that something was missing, but it just didn't quite connect with me, and I'm not sure why. But I maybe it's just because we knew it was gonna happen, and it just finally did. And now Willow's not on TV, so I don't know if Willow's taking time off or she's just selling the attack from Chris, and or if she's taking time off, or I don't think she's injured. I haven't heard anything about that, so maybe she's just selling Statlander's attack. But what do you think about the turn?
I think maybe they were setting Willow up to be in the Owen because I don't think they wanted her to have the belt and all that. And I think they want her to have some kind of maybe. Because if you do it right, obviously, like if you think of like the G1, people are in there that have feuds going on. So this is a way to build a feud inside of the.
Yeah. And like Nikki said, that gives Willow and Chris something to do that doesn't involve the title. Like they have a woman's storyline, like much like Deanna and Thunder Rosa, which has nothing to do with the title. Now you have this other title. I mean, it does in a way.
So they're kind of fighting each other for the shot inside of that tournament. Right. On top of fighting all the other women that they're fighting.
Right. And so I feel like both of them will be in the Owen. Especially now that we know that the Owen I'm so glad it actually has some stakes to it. And it actually matters more than just saying you won the ON and you carry your belt one time.
Here's
and
your ceremonial belt.
Yeah. And then that's it. And then we never see it again until next year. And so I like that it has actual stakes this year. I do. And they could potentially, depending on who's in the tournament, they could potentially have Willow win it again. She won it last year. Perhaps this is how we get her to be get a title shot at the but it would be obviously for the women's championship. But then on the other hand, you don't want Willow to lose that again. So, but I feel like with the Owen Cup, depending on, that's been the thing, like depends on who's in it. We don't have a start date. We have an end date, which is really interesting. We don't know when this tournament is starting, and we don't obviously know who's in it. And that's why, I put it on here just to talk about it. It's like who could potentially be in the Owen. And I saw quite a few people, and this is kind of what I agree with. If they are in the tournament, it feels like Mariah May will probably win the women's side because that will set her up for Tony in Wembley, which makes the most sense.
Which pays off that story and makes the Owen a really big deal.
Right. And then on the men's side of things, Hangman returns, is in the Owen, wins, and that sets up Hangman Swerve at Wembley. But you don't necessarily need the Owen to do that with Hangman, with basically now Swerve is having to deal with he's having to reap what he sowed, and all the bad things he did on the way to becoming champion. They're already doing that story. So I was like, Hangman doesn't necessarily need the Owen to set this match up. But if the winner is already getting that shot, then of course that would set Hangman up.
I feel like you should not have Hangman be the challenger. I mean, if you're gonna give the belt to Will at Wembley, then whatever. But if you're not, and you're gonna keep it on Swerve, I think you save that match for All Out. The Hangman versus Swerve match.
Yeah, they could do that because it seemed like because
that's to me that seems like a better match. It pushes him off.
Swerve is the one who said last year that he hinted at wrestling Hangman and Wembley last year. So that's the only reason I go back to that. But Hangman has the story without the Owen, because if he is getting Swerve back for all the things that happened on his way to becoming champion, the story's already there, and they don't need the Owen to do that. And but obviously the winner of the Owen gets Swerve. So maybe they do hold off Hangman and Swerve until All Out. I hadn't thought about that, because that's now they've moved it. So it's 2 weeks away, or 2 weeks after that, assuming Swerve retains.
Otherwise, it would be like maybe Forbidden Door or something, but I think Swerve's got a match now, doesn't he?
Swerve is wrestling Will Ospreay.
That's right.
Because Will won the gauntlet, which,
right.
Again, so I think Will, it feels like they're getting that match out of the way.
Okay.
I think, I don't necessarily agree with Will Ospreay winning that match on Wednesday. I don't know why he already has the title. I mean, he did cut a promo after Double or Nothing saying he was coming for all the gold. So perhaps he's going to be on a quest to be like a belt collector type of thing. But I feel like they're doing Swerve versus Ospreay at Forbidden Door to get it out of the way. Will's going to, and it won't be title versus title.
Yeah.
It'll be just for the world champion. I feel like Swerve retains, and that Swerve goes in. And then so that gets Hangman, that gets Ospreay out of the way. And I guess he just focuses on the international championship. But then I'm hoping, I wonder though, if they're going to put MJF in the Owen and have him win it, and then he gets a shot at Swerve.
Gosh.
I don't necessarily know that MJF wins and beats Swerve, but we had originally, before we've talked about it, before MJF was injured, the plan we had heard was Joe was going to win the title at World's End. MJF at some point was going to win it back. And then he was going to lose it to, and then he was going to lose it to Will at Wembley. But it seems like, so they pivoted because of the injury stuff, and also because Swerve was really hot and they had to, that was the time to do it. So is that how they get MJF back into the title picture, is have him win the Owen? But then I don't think Swerve should lose at Wembley. I don't think he should be a 4-month champion.
I don't either. I don't know how they're going to go. I just don't think that, because if he's already wrestling Will and Will's not going to win, which I think that
Yeah, I think that's why they gave Will the international championship, is because they wanted to give him a title.
I think it makes more sense, like with they're doing that stuff, and they're not going to do Wembley this year. They can push it off a year. I mean, it'll just make it hotter. It's not like Will winning at Wembley isn't going to be a big deal when it happens, no matter when.
Right. So they could push it off.
I don't know if I love MJF versus Swerve as the like highlight match for Wembley.
No, I don't know that I do either, but I'm wondering if that, I mean, of course that could all change once we know who's in the tournament and maybe we have a better idea, but I'm curious, but that just made me wonder, like, because where does MJF fit into all of this? Like, with everything happening, where does MJF fit? And so that was like, then that's how that's one way to do it, is put him in the Owen and have him win it. He doesn't necessarily have to win the title, but then you have the Adam Cole stuff. So maybe MJF and Adam Cole are both in the Owen, and maybe that plays out like they are with Stat and Willow. Then maybe that's what they do with Adam and MJF. Maybe they do some of they play. Maybe Wardlow costs it. Maybe Wardlow is in the Owen and Wardlow beats MJF in the, or keeps MJF from, even if he doesn't beat him, maybe Wardlow keeps MJF from winning and keeps him from getting a title shot, and then that sets them up for their thing. So again, assuming we don't know who's in this,
right?
And Vinkin says that I don't think we're getting double champion Will. I think that will piss off a lot of people.
I don't think that's happening because people want to see him as the champion. They don't want to see him as a double champion. I think that he'll have to. I don't see that. I see Will winning the title outright when he's not got his belt, when he's dropped that international to somebody. And
Vinkin says unless they want to build Will up to Kenny level so Kenny can go against him after he's dealt with the Bucks. There's that too. That's certainly possible. And so that's the thing, is like, when is Kenny coming back? Because Kenny he said in his promo, I'll be back in a couple months, but I don't know that that's what he meant to say. I think that's just a figure. I took that as a figure of speech. I didn't take him literally. I don't think he will be back in a couple of months. I think it's going to take a lot longer. And that's if recovery goes well and when he's cleared to train, like, that's not going to happen in a 2-month period. Like, I don't see him. So. We'll be lucky to see him back before the end of the year. I think Kenny misspoke, or he used the term loosely.
He didn't say what he was. He just you said it. He misspoke. It's not. He didn't say exactly what he meant.
Yeah, that's what I feel anyway.
That's how I took it.
I would like to be pleasantly surprised. Maybe he cut, but I just, with the surgery,
with all the stuff he had to deal with, and the fact that it only just happened, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he only had surgery 3 weeks ago.
It's just recent. He was able to have a bunch of that stuff. So
yes,
I don't know.
And then now we also have, related to Double or Nothing, and then how we're apparently going to get another tournament on top of the Owen, is now we have the TNT Championship is vacant because Adam Copeland injured himself when he did the spot from the very top of the cage, and it seemed like, because that wasn't quite an elbow drop that he did, it seems like he got up there and thought, I might hurt him. Let me do this instead. And he hurt himself instead of Malachi, which, by the way, I thought that match was really great. I'm so glad we got the
it was a really good match.
The Brood, I loved having the Brood theme. I popped for that.
Me too. I'm so bummed because I think they were going to do something with that, and he went busted himself up, and he's out for 9 months.
Yeah, and then we had the thing, and we got the Gangrel moment. We got him popping up out of the thing, which is what I was hoping for, that we would get Gangrel. We got it. We got, him trying to let Adam celebrate on his own, and him pulling Gangrel in, no, we're going to celebrate this together. So I'm glad they got that moment. But I hate, obviously that, Adam is injured, and he broke his tibia? Is that what the injury was? Because Eddie has a fractured tibia along with his other stuff. Eddie is he's going to be out for a long time too. And now we've got Adam Copeland.
Eddie was didn't he ACL, MCL, and meniscus? I thought he blew his knee out.
No, he fractured the tibia, and he blew out his ACL and his meniscus. And so he has to let the tibia heal and do physical therapy. So they can't do surgery. So he can't even do surgery until July.
Yep.
And then his return is 9 to 10 months after that, which would put him back.
Because they have to heal the stupid broken bone first because the other thing
before
won't
they can
stick.
do the other stuff, and he has to go through physical therapy and all of that first,
dumb.
then do the surgery. So he's out like about as long as Adam Copeland is out now. So we're losing both of them, which sucks because who knows? I really wonder what they had set for Adam Copeland at Wembley. And because, we were hosts. Some people, I still wanted it. Like, I was hoping they'd do Adam and Christian versus the Young Bucks at Wembley. Like, I think that would be incredible. And now they're going to have to pivot from whatever they were doing. And so we had the moment on, like, it didn't even hit me until I was watching it when the Elite came out there. And I was like, they're just going to give this belt to Jack. And that's going to be it. Like, I didn't even consider it. And then, of course, they tried to. And then interim EVP Christopher Daniels is like, not on my watch. And so at first I was like, this does have kind of like the sports entertainment feel to it. But like Nikki pointed out, if Tony Khan can't be on TV and doesn't want to be an on-screen character, then Christopher Daniels being that surrogate character makes sense for the story that they're telling. Keeps Tony off TV. Chris
knows what he's doing and is way more charismatic.
Yeah, right. So then you have Christopher Daniels, who's not going to put up with their shit, which I think is smart because you don't have
HR Christopher Daniels gimmick is hilarious anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's already funny. Yeah, because if you watch the BTE stuff they were doing with him was really great.
It was fantastic.
And then, yes, Venkin points out that Okada is the greatest comedy wrestler ever.
He's
that
so great.
Segment.
He just seems like he's having the best time ever.
He is, but
he's
my God.
I'm letting my hair down. I'm wrestling in a whole new world. I'm just doing I'm living my best life. I'm the best and I'm living my best life.
He was, my wife is not the only actress in this family. He's like, she might, I
think she's genuinely happy to be with the Bucks. I think they're pals.
He's so funny. And somebody was talking about how he's a comedic wrestler who just happens to be like the best wrestler ever. Yeah. On top of that, like he's a comedy wrestler trapped in that body of being like a near perfect wrestler.
A wrestling god.
His comedic timing is just, it's so good. And he just, for me, and then he like I knew I was like, he's not crying, and then he just moves his hand and he's like just deadpan. I was just like, it's flawless. Like I'm loving heel Okada. And I was joking that I'm still mad that he didn't come out with the Long Boys on Sunday for
that would have been
arena. I hoped he'd bring back the Long Boys.
That would have been a fun Easter egg for some of us.
But God, Okada is. He is having.
He's having a blast.
He's just living his best life. He's driving Lamborghinis, living in New York City. Gets paid to just be funny, wrestle when he feels like it.
Go visit his best friend Shinsuke Nakamura anytime he wants to, and they can go surfing.
Right. They can go surfing. Yeah, they can do whatever they want. So it's great. Like, I love it. And that's really fun. So now we have this TNT I guess tournament, and it sounds like it's basically the C2 but for the TNT title, because Christopher Daniels said that there's no outside interference, there's no so the Elite can't if Jack Perry is assuming he's in this tournament,
they can't help
him. They can't be involved. So it sounds like it's basically C2. It sounds like it's C2 rules for the TNT Championship is what it feels like. I hope that's where they're going with it. So now they have
because they were freaking awesome during that time. That was some of the best wrestling they've done in a while when they did that.
So, and you could put you've got Jack Perry who could obviously be in it. And so I had wondered if they were bringing Scorpio back to be in the Owen. Because, they've been promoting him, but they didn't promote him last week. So then I was like, well, Scorpio wrestled for the TNT Championship.
Yeah, and then
he was. And so I was like, they could. So now that this is open, they could potentially move Scorpio's return up and put him in it. Or was he coming back for the Owen? I don't know. That's the thing is, we don't know when the Owen starts. And now, so they're basically going to have two simultaneous tournaments. And so I don't know how the TNT title, unless they do. And I don't know that they're going to. If they're going to do like a gauntlet style thing, because they just did the gauntlet casino
for the Forbidden Door thing.
For the shot at Swerve. So I'm like, what do you run to? I guess you could do the C2 version of the title shot, and then you have the Owen. So I guess these tournaments going to be happening at the same time? Like that's 3 tournaments. There's the women's bracket on top of that, so it'll be. I don't know how they're going to do this.
That's a lot of tournaments, and only June, July, and most of like 3 months to do it.
Right, because and then do you pull people who are going to be in the ON to put them in the TNT thing?
Gosh, I guess it's just.
And wasn't there a ladder? Because Eddie brings this up. What was there a ladder? He said TNT title ladder match at Forbidden Door. Yeah, it's going to be determined at Forbidden Door, and I think you are right that it is a ladder match, right?
Okay.
I'm getting my tournament.
You're getting your tournaments crossed.
I'm getting my tournaments confused. So is it just a one night? So is it not a tournament? It's just a one night match?
I hope so.
I think Eddie's right. I think I'm getting my tournaments confused. I think that's what's happening here. But still, do you pull people from Owen to be in this match? And potentially, because you could have like your TNT champion, like you could have Jack Perry. You could have maybe like Lee Moriarty or Kyle O'Reilly. And after the match Kyle O'Reilly had last night, he needs a belt soon. Like Kyle is wrestling like he's making up for the 2 years he missed. Like he had a pay-per-view level match with Will Ospreay last night. Like it was really, really good. Like that was Kyle's best match since he's been back. And so I think so that'll be interesting who they put in there. Because you're right, it is a ladder match. So that they could bring Sammy Guevara back. He's off of suspension. He's been a TNT.
He's out there. I mean, that is.
He's been a TNT champion before. He's done. He did the famous ladder spot with Cody in Cody's last match. So it'll be interesting to see.
It's like Will Hobbs or something. I feel like
he can't be Hobbs. He's out with injury.
Yeah, you're right.
Hobbs is out for a long time.
God dang it.
He's also out for a very long time.
Injury bug.
There's Takeshita.
Oh, that wouldn't be bad.
Takeshita needs a title. Takeshita should have a title.
That could be fun.
They could do Takeshita there. That mine was to this was before we knew how they were going to replace it. It was just we knew Adam was injured, and I was like, put Ricky Starks back on TV and make him TNT champion. But they do. I mean, yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how they did it. Thank you. Paul's here to set us straight. Thank you. Qualifying matches, then a ladder match at Forbidden Door. KT already had the ladder match thanks to the win and the call. Yes, Takeshita did win. And then he went on Rampage, and then so did Rey Fenix. And so it was interesting because Penta didn't win. Takeshita beat Penta, but then Rey Fenix beat Isaiah. And so it was interesting that they went with that Phoenix will be getting the title shot, but not Penta, which is smart. But then so Takeshita is in it. Yes. Thank you, Paul. I'm glad that thank you for being. See, this is why we need you guys in the chat. Because sometimes
why you have to be here.
Sometimes our brains don't.
Especially as after this long. We just,
yes. Hi, Frank. Oh, oops, like that's the wrong one. Hi, Frank. We're glad that you could join us. And then
Hi, Frank.
Welcome. But so then you got the CMLL talent coming in, and they're going to be bringing people in. Like we saw Hechicero come in the other night, and he was in and then Leo Rush came back and was in the tournament, which I was really happy to see. And he had on Collision, he had a really good match with Roddy last night. They opened the show. Well, they were the first match of the show. It was very good. Yeah, and it does look like we're getting Mercedes versus Vacker, which I am very happy about because they were great, and Stephanie's so good. And then we had last night at the Stardom show, Tony promo aired of Tony and Mariah, and Tony challenged Mina, but then she said, "Don't worry about me. Anybody who's a friend of Mariah's is a friend of mine." And then Mina cut a promo later in the show. I saw a clip of it, and she told her, she said, "Chin up, tits out, and watch out for me," which I thought was really cool. Yeah, so that should be really fun. So we've got those two women's matches at Forbidden Door. Which I think it was Lyric said that Toni Storm is the only woman who has had matches at every Forbidden Door. Hers have been, I think they've been pre-show matches. The first two were, and then she's the first woman, she's made.
No, I thought it was on the regular card on the first one.
You know what?
The
Yeah, I
first
think
one she
right.
was on the actual card.
I think you're right.
It was her and Thunder Rosa.
But I believe yes, you're right. That was Forbidden Door. So, but I believe
that
Toni
was the first one.
I think Toni is the only woman who has been. She will be the only woman who's been on all 3 Forbidden Door shows, which is really
cool. She was on last year's.
Yeah. So there looks some good stuff going on over there. And yeah, so we've kind of covered the ON and the TNT championship, and thank you for setting us straight. And then hopefully soon we'll know the participants and have kind of a better idea of who we think might do what. But now I'm very curious about if MJF's going to be in it. But then you've got the Wardlow storyline, and is this where Hangman comes back, or does Hangman do his own thing, which it sounds like he's kind of doing anyway? And I hope they keep that character going. I really liked what they were doing with him. I hope he doesn't change his character when he comes back. Then he has he has the Elite to deal with. They kicked him out of
I like the anti-authority version much better.
Right, exactly.
He should stick with that, especially with the EVPs being
right. And
that's just natural. It writes itself.
That's why when people were like, he should be an Anarchy in the Arena, I was like, no, he shouldn't, because he's got that'll mess up his character stuff. He doesn't need to be in it. He's doing his own thing. And so, and we don't have it. I don't know how long we had never heard how long he was taking off, just that he was taking personal time. It was planned after Revolution, and he's still under contract. Everything is fine with him. Like there's nothing bad backstage happening with him. He's just taking time off to do whatever it is that he's doing. But we never had a time frame of when he was coming back. So Hangman could show up at any point, really.
Well, I mean, you have 2 really big pay-per-views coming up at the end of the summer, though. So
right, yeah, you've got All In, you've got All Out, and then Full Gear is named for him. If you watch BTE, that Full Gear came about because of him. So I mean, he could always either return at Full Gear, or he could come back and then build up a match to have at Full Gear. So there's and now we've got, so July is our only month without a pay-per-view, because we have Forbidden Doors June 30th, and then everything is set. There's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view in July 26th.
Battle of the Belts is in July too.
Yes, because that's also happening where they're doing the shows in Arlington. They didn't say which night yet, but one of the Collision shows will have a Battle of the Belts afterwards, and then there's also ROH's Death Before Dishonor is happening July 26th. So that'll be happening instead of an actual pay-per-view in July. And then you have all the way to the end of August before. So there's a big stretch that they could build stories and have people come back and things like that, and have our tournaments and, and things of that. But yeah. So I think that covers everything. Yeah. I think we got it all. Yes.
And thanks to JD Oliva for coming on the show.
Definitely.
Buy his book. Kickstarter.
Definitely. We will post the Broadcast Studio asked what I don't know if they're asking what they missed. This is who asked about the Discord. So I don't know if you want to remind them, in case they missed what you said about Discord, if you want to let them know again.
Okay. If you want to join our Discord, the Fight Game Media Discord, it's you go ahead and shoot Garrett, our fearless leader, GG at fightgamemedia.com, and go ahead and let him know that you would like access to the Discord. You heard about it on Powerbombshells. It's a cool place, and we do actually ask that you don't act like a jerk, and we like to keep it cool. So as long as you're coming in to be a cool person, just like ask him and he will send you an invite, and then you pop in there, and we all have our own channels, and we have lots of other channels. We talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. It's a lot of fun. We don't just talk. We have plenty of wrestling talk. Don't get me wrong, but we actually have a lot of fun. I really enjoy the cooking channels and stuff, because people like Jeremy are excellent cooks, and I really enjoy checking out their marinades and rubs. No, it's a lot of fun. It really is a cool community, and we try and keep it that way. So please, if you are going to come in, try and be part of the community.
Just be cool.
Be cool.
Just be cool. Don't be Don
Okay.
Callis over here. Venkin says also
Right.
Don Callis and Trent hug on Dynamite. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I knew, I was like, there's no way. Because we've been saying like Trent is the one who makes the most sense. And then when Trent was waiting from behind to attack Orange, and I was like, yes, see,
Yep.
this makes perfect sense. I was like, Orange does not need to be with him. So yeah.
Dang it, Trent.
But
What have
you
done?
He's setting off chain events. I still don't trust Rocky completely. I
Me
still
either.
feel like Rocky might turn heel.
They don't call him the King of Sneaky Style for no reason.
This is true, and he's a heel in CMLL, and he's apparently very. And so
Chico El Luchador is a heel.
Yeah, right, right. So I think Orange Cassidy might be our only baby face left from the best friends.
That's gonna be a weird play out. That'd be hilarious if he turned Chico for a minute.
Right. He could. Chico might show up.
No do job.
Maybe that's the Forbidden Door. Just going to be Orange versus Chico. Orange versus Chico at Forbidden Door. That's what they should do. Book it, Tony. But yes, thank you again to JD. We will make sure to post this Kickstarter link. We do have a special guest next week as well. So we will have that. And Nikki said Roppongi Vice again. Right. But thank you for staying with us. And we will see you next week.
Have a great week, everybody.